All right. Why don't we go ahead and call tonight's city council meeting to order? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. All members of council are present with the exception of Councilor Haugen, who is excused. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Hearing a motion from Councilor Polling, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council President Greisen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comments. We've got two people requesting public comments. Why don't we go ahead and start with Mr. Weiss, who's here in person.
Okay, yeah. Pete had asked me to stop by and talk about some things from Scappoose Centennial before the meeting. As you know, the city had submitted a grant for a mural earlier this year. What was rejected by Travel Oregon. There's a second grant available through the Oregon Community Foundation that allows for projects that involve children and high schoolers during this summer. So I have been meeting with Jenna Reiking from Tumbleweed Studios, and we put together a package to apply for that grant so that we could get a Centennial mural somewhere in the community. Now, Pete had recommended that we put it on the equipment shed at the library, which is where the heat pumps are, the site that faces the Veterans Memorial. So I guess we're looking for feedback on that.
Visualize where that is.
Just thinking it's on this side
Yeah,
of the building.
it's the open shed that punches out from the wall.
8 by 22, I think.
Yeah, it's 8 by 22.
Is there a general concept of what the mural will look like?
Not yet, because we are just now applying for grants. So since it's an educational process, and you'd have a group of teenagers working on it, so they would come up with an overall concept, execution, and then doing the artwork. And we do have a person from Portland that she knows that teaches mural design that would be working with this project.
Has there been any discussion to reach out to the high school art department to seek volunteers, or do you have the holders youth already identified that would be participating?
No, we don't have the youth identified because this has all happened within the space of literally a few days. But we would need to move pretty fast on the grant because the Community Foundation has $40 million in funds that they're distributing for this program on a rolling basis until the funds are gone.
Maybe the library is utilizing that space.
Yeah,
Maintenance of the mural.
yes.
When is the deadline for the grant? Or
The money runs out.
As soon as I said that out loud, then it
Yeah.
caught up to me.
So the sooner the better. The library itself would be the place that's most impacted because it would be on our building.
It would be very visible though from the veterans, so nobody would recognize that it's part of the city really.
Right.
Everybody just all together in one group anyway. But it would be a nice, there's no scaffolding involved, which I've had to do in the other locations, which would be a little bit of a liability problem. And I happened to, over weekend, I was down in Philomath, and they had this.
Oh,
They had wasn't a mural, but it was a drawing that was all covered by plexiglass, and it looked like. I took some photos of it. It looked like because it'd be real easy for someone to vandalize that.
Mhm.
And then a lot of work could be, just go down the drain, immediately. So
Great
it's
idea.
another thought.
And the other part of this grant too is the minimum amount we can apply for is $15,000. And Jen and I did some figures over the weekend, and we don't think that's a $15,000 mural. So if there's some other place, say in Veterans, where we could do an art project too, that's a
Oh.
definite possibility. So that's something to consider.
You have to at least ask for $15,000.
That's correct.
And what is this estimated to be? Or what do you,
The figures we were using were $150 per square foot. So, several $1,000s, but
so in order to make a comprehensive grant application, are you going to need a
we don't need a definite location now, but, because the way we're going to write the grant is for so much for materials,
Okay.
so much for instructors.
and kind of writing it under the lens of this like teen mentorship program and
Right.
teens being involved and maybe they're helping find locations or okay.
Yeah. But we would like to not put it on private buildings because
Yeah.
we wouldn't have control.
Makes sense. So is there anything you need from us tonight or?
We'd need a letter of support sometime soon.
Okay.
Is that something that Will and Alex are able to help with or?
Sure, we can put it together and then present it to the mayor for signature if that's acceptable to council.
What I liked about this was the fact that we got kids involved and they're older kids, which is really valuable, and that there'll be some buy-in to it. But just the fact that we have kids doing something for the Centennial that's really meaningful and hopefully long-lasting, I think that what I was excited about the most. Jeff mentioned this grant to me, so, and I would think that whatever, since it faces the city, I would think even though it's the library's property, their board will probably approve whatever goes on there, but they'll probably ask for our approval too, I would think, or at least let
Right.
us, get some input into it. So
But the way I envision this is the kids do the total design and then come up with several proposals and the other thing I've got too in the grant field is the state library is also giving away a lot of money this year. And there's several things that we could use that in partner. We would be the funder, the grant administrator, but it would be in collaboration with the city. And one of those things is we can buy equipment for outdoor activities for the park. So we could buy picnic tables. We could buy lockers if you wanted to do that, although I don't know if I would. You could buy outdoor charging stations. We could Wi-Fi the parks. There's several things that we could apply for under that blanket grant.
You also be seeking a letter of support for that grant as well?
Well, see that the difference between the art grant and this grant is the things that I'm talking about would be on city property, not on library property. So, or picnic tables in the park, those would be under the city's purview, actually, as far as where they're deployed to. If you're going to store them and just use them for special events, what we would be doing is funding it.
Why don't you work with our interim city manager
Okay.
and those grants opportunities and see if there's anything that works within the city's goals and budget and potential.
On the second grant they talked about, what's the funding available on that? No.
It's in the millions too, but I've forgotten the exact amount. It's a competitive grant though, and the applications are due June 30th.
Like it has a lot of potential.
And it sounds like, just checking, generally speaking, that council is okay with either of these, so we don't necessarily need to come back for any kind of approvals, just
Move forward.
pursue what we can get. Okay.
Thank you.
I agree.
And that's about it, except for I do have handouts for what we're doing is we're got 5 age groups.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
the kids will do Scappoose-based art projects. They'll get judged, they'll get prizes at the event.
All right,
Okay?
Thank
What I
you so
got.
much.
It's really good. Thanks, Jeff.
next. Thank you, Jeff. Marissa, are you online? Is she there? Marissa Jacobs? I know that she wanted to talk about the comment on the Grabhorn Park ad hoc committee. If she comes in. Yeah. All right, moving forward. New business, community enhancement program presentations. We will just start from the top like we normally do. That would might encourage people to change their names to an A starting name. No, why don't we go ahead and start with Beth Polito with the Monty Center? Beth?
Good evening. I always have the benefit of going first. My name is Beth Polito. I am the development coordinator from the Amani Center. First, I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay, because I'm at the top of Sylvan Hill.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Well, I know that everybody has a copy of our application, and it's very similar to what it's been in the past regarding support, continued support for our ability to provide forensic interviews and medical assessments to children suspected to be victims of abuse and neglect in Columbia County. Some of our statistics in that report mention that 12% of the population that we see at our center comes from Scappoose, and we have resources for the citizens of Scappoose, as well as our community partners, including law enforcement and fire and that sort of thing. So it's hard not to see you guys today. I can't see your faces, but just in case there's anybody new who maybe doesn't know what we do, we are a children's advocacy center, primarily focusing on intervention of child abuse cases. We partner with the DA's office, DHS, law enforcement, schools, public health, and community mental health to intervene. In cases of child abuse, we offer unbiased, neutral, investigative opportunities for police to observe, so that they don't have to be doing the so that kids are not re-traumatized by having to go through and tell their story multiple times of the disclosure that they're talking about, whether it's sexual abuse, physical abuse, witness to violence, and that sort of thing. So that was a really choppy explanation of what we do, but does anybody have any questions about it or need clarification on the application?
Any questions? Beth, you do a wonderful job every year kicking it off.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We really appreciate your guys' continued support of our organization. We're countywide. We try and make sure that we're supporting all of the communities in Columbia County and making sure that our kids are safe in this area.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. All right, next will be Karen Miller with Casa for Children. Karen?
Yeah, thank you for having me. For those of you that might not know, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And what we do is we recruit and train volunteers that want to work with kids that are in foster care. And, you know, as with everybody, COVID has hit kids really hard this year. Where hotline calls really dropped because mandatory reporters are not seeing the kids as they usually do in schools and things. So even though the calls have dropped, the cases that we're getting, and you know, and I've been talking with DHS too about this, have been very severe. And we're seeing very severe neglect and abuse. And the other thing that makes it so very important this year is that we know that as soon as school gets back full time, that we expect to see a very huge increase in the amount of calls coming in, because people just haven't been seeing what's going on with those children because they haven't been out in the public. So this year, more than anything, we're trying to gear up for knowing that September, in the fall, we're going to see a lot more kids come in. Casas don't get paid. They don't get reimbursed for their expenses. They are wonderful people in your community who their sole purpose is wanting to help these kids through that very traumatic process of being in foster care. And they're the only person on that whole case in foster care that their sole purpose is to be there is to advocate for what they see as the best interest of those children. So the law says that every child should have a CASA, but the reality is they don't fund it. We only get about 15% of our funding from the state and federal. So the rest is wonderful organizations like yours that help support us. So we appreciate all the support you've given us in the past, and we really hope that you'll see to be able to continue to do that. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions for Ms. Miller? Karen, thank you very much for coming out. We greatly appreciate your application again this year.
And
Thank
we
you very
appreciate
much.
the work of all your volunteers too. They do a
Yes.
great job
Thank
for a
you.
lot of kids.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, they're wonderful volunteers. Thank you so much.
All right, next one, Genuine Graphics, Mike Verostek. All right, we'll move forward.
Can we check if he's outside just in case?
Next one should be in person. Is Stephanie?
He should be outside. Oh, yes, just the.
Yes. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You're just presenting your Grant Watts Parents Organization application.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having us. We are super excited for this second year's opportunity to present to the board, to present to the council our proposal. We are desperately trying to launch our Scappoose Sprouts Learning Garden. And as everybody else did this last year, we took a dramatic pivot and kind of halted our plans that focused on the actual garden itself, that entailed the garden beds and the actual layout of it. We focused specifically just on the outdoor classroom. So we were able to utilize the funds that you guys blessed us with last year to really focus on making sure they had a usable space that had the tools and the tables and the recreational space that the teachers could use right away. But what we came across was that in order to really focus on doing something that would be long-standing, long-term, we first and foremost need a good foundation, which is concrete. And that is quite expensive. Took up all of our budget for the most part, and then some. So we had to really focus on fundraising, but we're still just a tad short. So we have brought to the city once again, pretty much what we need just for the tail end last bit. It is a lot of last bit. We feel that we're asking for an enormous amount given what the community probably is all asking you for. But we do feel that this is the last ask we'll need to really get that concrete down. And then from there, everything else is ready to go. So we're just really hoping that this is going to be it. And then we can really incorporate the community as a whole into coming into Grant Watts, the elementary school itself, supporting its new principal and really embracing this new wave that's coming our way for the aftermath of COVID and really getting the kids excited about being back at school, but getting their hands back in the soil and getting proud of what they're doing. So we're hoping that this would be a good option for you. And answer any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
I have a quick question.
Oh, wait, the teacher's got the question.
What was the total cost of the concrete
The total cost presented to us, it was just over 10,000.
for the concrete? Oh, that 10,700,
Well, no, they
Oh.
were asking almost 14,000.
14,000 for concrete.
Yes, we were able to fundraise, utilize past funds that were raised to create that just over 10,000. Plus there was still just over 900 left from what you guys had granted us last year. So that 10,700 is what we have in our account to use. But to make sure we have the full 14 and then whatever else might come, we're not sure. We were hoping for the full extent.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dave, you know a concrete source on the cheap?
There's two in the area, Count Portland and Nyford.
You can beat this number. Call me. It's on the application.
Both of them are known to donate, so you may reach out just to see if they'd be interested.
Okay, great. We will look into that. We are not. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, the next group is Riverside Community Outreach. Abby Olson.
Hi, here it is. Oops. Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Abby Olson, and I am the Executive Director of Riverside Community Outreach and Every Child Northwest. We wrap around and support families impacted by foster care. So Every Child is a movement that is spreading across the state of Oregon, and Riverside Community Outreach is the local nonprofit that provides the fiscal sponsorship. So kind of explain both of them. In this area, sometimes they get used interchangeably. So what we do is we wrap around families and journey with them through the process. So we provide tangible needs for children coming into foster care. We recruit for foster parents. We provide, in a normal non-COVID year, we provide respite care with Foster Parents Night Out. And then we also provide support with reunification. We partner with Iron Tribe for families in recovery. And we also recently started providing support for families in crisis who have an open case with the Department of Human Services, but children haven't necessarily been removed yet, in the hopes that perhaps we can stabilize a family. So our application asks for foster parent support. And since it's our first time applying for this specific grant, I put down some ideas. Ideally, we're looking for funds for that general category of foster parent support so that we can meet the needs as they arise. We have met needs everywhere from a family needs a trampoline because they've got a lot of kids and they need to get outside and play. We have provided car seats for families before they need to go to the hospital to pick up a baby. We've provided frozen meals when a child first comes into care. We've provided a new bike. We've provided gift cards so parents can go out and get dinner, or coffee cards so they can get some coffee. Or we've even had a coffee, there's Joe's Espresso, like go to someone's house to say, hey, we see you, we appreciate you, we're here to support you. We're the place that caseworkers, foster parents, Casas go to when their kiddos have a need and they need it to get met. So, and it's not a one and done kind of thing. We're excited for a new opportunity. If you decide to grant us funding, I'll be back again next year telling you all the great ways we used it and asking for your support again, because it's really a journey to travel with foster families. I was a foster parent for 12 years. I have 10 children, 5 of them were adopted. And so very personally passionate about this work, and just excited for another, hopefully, partnership. Any questions?
Any questions? No questions, Abby. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna step back up to Genuine Graphics. Mike Virostek, are you here?
Verostek.
Virostek.
Hi. So I'm sorry, am I just supposed to? What
Just
am I supposed to
presenting
say?
your request.
Oh, okay. Well, as you know, we've been doing the skate park beautification project, and we originally wrote the grant to hopefully recoup some of the material costs incurred in that. Also, so there's a part A to that, which is hopefully recouping all the costs. But then there's another part B to the grant proposal that we're asking to hopefully get. So the murals need protection. There's a coating that you can put on it called Mural Shield. And what that does is protects it from the UV light and keeps it from fading over time. And then on top of that, you can put, it's called the world's best graffiti coating. And what that does is it protects it from being tagged. So once you put that coating over the Mural Shield, if it happens to get tagged or painted, you can just wipe it off. And businesses, I think the city of Scappoose is familiar with this product too. You can put it on your business, on your building, and if it, somebody comes by and graffitis over that, you can just wipe it off real easily. It won't allow paint to stick to it. But if you keep wiping it off, then you'll have to reapply that coating again to keep it protected for the next time. And I'm not sure, you might get like one or two, coatings that you have to wipe off before you have to put it back on. So I just noticed in the grant proposal that there was one little sentence in there that said you really can't retroactively, ask for money that's already been paid, for materials that are already been paid for. But I saw that at the discretion of the city council. So I'm just pleading to the city council that you guys can hopefully let this grant go through, and then we can recoup, the money that we've spent so far on the project. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I have one.
Vice President.
I'm noticing on your project budget where it says mural shield guard, that specific layer of guarding is $450. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the proposal in front of me, but the shield and the two coatings are pretty expensive. One's like $90 a gallon, and the other one's pretty close to that also. And you need like three coats of one and 2 coats of the other, or 3 gallons of one and 2 gallons of the other to cover all that square footage.
Okay.
So yeah, it adds up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike, for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. All right, our next will be the Scappoose Community Club. Josette Hugo, who will be coming inside for a second, in a second.
There's a new sheet on your desk.
Welcome, Josette.
Thank you. To be here. Thanks.
Happy to have you.
Welcome. We're just going to ask you to go ahead and present your request to us.
Okay. I think you all have already looked at our application. And basically, we've been in the process of changing out our Christmas displays to LED from incandescent. It's really helped us a lot, saved money for electricity. So we'd like to continue doing that. And then also we would like to add some more lights to the Watts house if possible. We have just kind of a minimum around the edges of the house, but it would be nice if we could get some more on it so that people could see it from the street. We'd also like to, we need to replace some farmer market signs. Some of them are going on 20 years old. And just this last weeks, I guess, we had some large signs that we put out on the highway, and it appears that the skateboarders might have used them for ramps. So they're a little bunged up. Let's see. We have a unit, as you know, at the city at the water treatment plant, and it contains a lot of our Christmas displays and our festival supplies for particularly for our sandwich booth. And that unit will need some rehabbing this year. There's a great deal of condensation, and everything inside is getting very wet and moldy. And so we'll need to go in and install some kind of vent so that it will, our Christmas display units and other supplies will be kept safe. And then just coming up, of course, we have the Centennial Celebration, which will be providing a booth there. And there's quite a bit of expense involved in purchasing the supplies for that and getting the word out about the sandwich booth. So those are the main things that we have on our docket this year. And so if I can answer any questions, I would be happy to do so.
Any questions? Vice President.
This grant application is just specific to the purchasing of new Christmas lights and decorations, as well as, that's all I see.
Okay. And that the signage issue and might have been left off of that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It just says funding for this project will then free up funds to continue supporting the farmers market.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Josette.
Thank you very much.
You have a great evening.
Thanks for all you do.
Yes.
Thanks for all the work you guys do at the community club.
We love it.
Yeah, it's appreciated.
Great group of
Need more volunteers.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next on the docket, we have the Scappoose Community and Senior Center. Is no response? Okay, we will move forward. Scappoose Historical Society, Jennifer Rago. Susan.
Oh my gosh. Have one of mine.
You can do it overhand too.
That's your text. This dying of thirst. Dehydrated.
Hi.
All right, welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Well, hello.
How are you? We're just asking you to give us a short presentation on your proposal here.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Hello, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. So I work with the Scappoose Historical Society. And our chosen project this year for the community funds is to help enhance and protect historical artifacts and information that's in the museum. We currently have one safe on site, and it's pretty packed because it's not that big of a safe. And there's a lot of information that we still need and would like to provide some enhanced protection, from the elements, from dust, from light, things like that, to prevent them from disintegrating, papers, documents, photographs, as well as, protecting from theft. The main reason is more for damage. We really could use 2 safes, but I didn't want to be too greedy. So that's kind of goes towards the lifelong learning goals and also the local pride, where you talk about protecting in the community vision, the local pride about artifacts and the different art that represents our community. So we go towards helping preserve that, as well as lifelong learning, since the museum is open to the public free of charge, which also contributes to those that might not be able to afford a regular museum. So it helps provide that benefit to everybody in the community. The total estimated cost, really based on the prior safe that we bought, which is around $3,200, added a little bit for inflation. I kind of poked around on the internet to just sort of get some quotes. And then I wasn't sure what delivery would cost on top of the safe, so I sort of estimated about pretty big safe. They said it was a really challenging job to get the current safe in the basement. So I was just kind of estimating about $500. If we don't use the whole $500 on delivery, we can always supplement with additional museum quality storage boxes and things that we can also use. What else, you guys? So one of your questions was there secure funding for the a sponsor? So I was assuming that was, wasn't totally sure, but I was assuming that was, is there somebody else that's a donor for that? Yeah. We don't really specifically have a donor that said that they would support whatever the difference is, but we do have some funds available from prior years and donations that have come in that we could allocate towards the difference if we needed to, probably about $1,000. We have received community enhancement grants in the past, not specifically for this type of project, but for other projects. I know Karen Holmberg was somebody that had submitted prior community enhancement grants and that had used those funds to enhance the museum, to attract new visitors and do different projects like that. And they have gone well in the past. And the project would be managed by pretty much the board, myself and the other board members, or if we can get some volunteers in there as well. Do you have any other questions?
Any questions?
I do have a comment, though. I did speak to a person that is a genealogist who's familiar with our museum, and she said that we have one of the best collections of any town our size in the state of Oregon, as far as the type of documents we have and photos and that sort of thing. So she said we have something there to be proud of and to protect.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great to know. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so yeah, we definitely want to protect that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for your time. Have a great night.
So did we ever hear from anyone from the Scappoose Kiwanis for the Scappoose Youth Rec Center? Amanda? Is there anyone here for the Scappoose Kiwanis Youth Rec Center?
I think they've had some changes in their plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those,
board made some decisions that might affect this grant. I'm not sure.
all right. Why don't we go ahead and move on to the next one? Oh, wait. All right. Scappoose Middle School, Paula Gaiman, Holiday Feather Bazaar.
Hi, I'm Paula Gaiman. I'm the new librarian at the middle school. Cindy Craik has applied for this grant over the last few years, and she's unable to be here. So I put my name on it this year as a representative of the middle school, but I have not participated in it before. What I can tell you is what kids have to say about it. And I think I included in the application some of the quotes from the kids. We are a Title I school district, which means we have enough children that qualify for free or reduced lunches, which kind of tells you where our kids are economically. And this is just a great thing that they can earn shopping time and things to buy for their families for Christmas. It's quite popular, and we hope to bring it back this year. Unfortunately, we tried to do some sort of reward thing last year, but with all the changing COVID rules, we were never able to do it. But we really want to come back and do it really well this year. I like I said, I've never been there for it because I worked at another building last year. So I'm new, and we're going to do our best. Cindy will still be involved as a volunteer, and all of our volunteers that we have had in the past are really looking forward to it. So I don't know if I can answer very many questions, but if you have them, please ask.
Any questions other than it is a really cool program?
Mm-hmm.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next will be the Scappoose School District. Amanda Darlak, Kevin Pinkstaff, Centennial Run. The mayor's going to get them? Am I the chief then? That's awesome.
Bring 'em in.
Bring them in. As long as they run.
Hey, Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor Miller.
Hi, my name is
Welcome.
Kevin Pinkstaff. I'm the cross-country coach at Scappoose High School. And this is Griffin Barron, one of our runners, and Amanda Darlak, our assistant coach. This past fall, Pete McHugh and Joel Haugen approached us about the idea of putting on a run as part of the Centennial Celebration, and the idea of the cross-country and track teams helping support it. They thought that that would add some good options to the various festivities going on, and we were excited about the idea of it, and using our teams to help support the event, which Griffin can tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, so I've been running at this for 3 years, cross country and track varsity. We have a great, like really tight knit team, and this run for Neil that we're putting on, we really want to honor his legacy in that he wanted to expand the sport of running. He loved the sense of community that we had, and I know that a lot of this team is looking forward to volunteering and helping out, go door to door, ask people to cheer, set up the course, work on the volunteer to manage the course during the races, and this means a lot to us, and we're really excited.
And Neil's grandparents are here tonight as well. And I know on behalf of the Hoffman family, it's very important for them to support the mental health of the youth in the community. And running for Neil was something that's what he got out of it. And they want to see us be able to bring that to the community as a whole. And so what we're looking for is some help to be able to provide awards and incentives for people to come out to draw in from the running community from around the area. And that might draw new people into Scappoose that maybe wouldn't otherwise come participate in the festival, and hopefully make, return customers out of them to the various businesses and things like that around. And our hope is if we can have a large turnout of the first year, that this will be an annual event and we can recruit sponsors to cover those costs for us in the future. So we're just kind of looking for some help to get things started here to begin.
Any questions? I have.
Okay.
One of the things I'd like to say is that what I'm really impressed with is how the kids have supporting one of their own, and with Neil, supporting Neil and his cause. And if anybody has a chance to look at the website and what's written on there, I think is really, he really captures. I don't know Neil at all, but after reading that and talking with his family and coaches. I feel I knew him. He was a very impressive young man. It ties in very, very nicely with our Centennial. And, you know, there's going to be about 50 kids that volunteer with this. And, and that's, you know, a bit of a sacrifice in itself, although they don't feel that way. But maybe the real sacrifice is that they don't get to run in the meet. And these are runners, you know, they want to run. So next year you guys will get to do that probably. Anyway, thanks so much, you guys.
Of course. Which vendor did you hire for timing?
Athletic timing?
Okay. Okay. And do they advertise the event on their site?
It's currently advertised on Run sign up. I'm not actually aware of whether or not Athletic Timing has it advertised on theirs. I think that's part of the package that they offer.
Okay. I just, having been one of the co-coordinators for Wings and Wheels up until COVID kind of killed it, we did a run. So
Okay.
I understand the getting all those little pieces together, and the most important piece is getting the runners to sign up. And what are they going to get when they sign up? Runners like to have, are you doing medals or they're?
Yeah, so the different age group divisions providing prizes is certainly something that we're looking for. Yeah, that's part of what
I would literally just go and start looking at every company involved with running and seeing if they have something to donate. And we ended up getting people the week before calling us up, hey, can we send sample power bars or something like that to put in the packets? Or we had Allstate that would provide runners their running bags that said Allstate on them, but it include a water bottle and different things in the community.
Yes,
so there's a lot of, in fact, it was our biggest money maker of the event. The run made money, where the rest made a little bit, but the run really, really made the money. And had we been able to continue it, we had it actually measured as a certified half marathon qualifier.
Oh, excellent.
If you actually took that run from the high school or from the airport where we started and could get that access and run that route, it is still marked as a certified route for qualifying for half marathons.
Excellent. Good to know. Yeah, good suggestion.
But yeah, as you grow, getting a half marathon that's a certified half marathon really makes it, because this area is pretty flat and there's not a lot of flat half marathons in the area for runners to do. That's what I've learned over the last several years. But it's great to see someone else stepping up and doing a run in the community.
Yeah,
They're
and,
great.
I'm aware that there's been previous ones, so whatever lessons we can learn from them to apply towards us would be great.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for organizing. Pete and Joel have been so great with the Centennial, and you just seem to find those niches. And to honor Neil is just so important. I started running competitively when I was 12, and then cross country all throughout. And you're right. It's like a family. I mean, there's something about runners, and it's, I think that you guys stepping up and just being present means so much to our community and his family. And so thank you so much for donating your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Nice job.
All right, the next one is the St. Helens Senior Center, Kathy Inosetti.
Yes, you got it. Hi, I'm Kathy Innocenti. I'm the director of the St. Helens Senior Center, and we provide and have been providing for about the last 3 years meals to seniors and the disabled in Scappoose. We have been doing our home delivered meals in St. Helens for many, many years, and so it's just really been a joy to include Scappoose in that program. We're requesting funds to help us continue providing those meals. The meals that we serve are hot. We cook each day. During the pandemic, we've cut back. We're cooking Monday, Wednesday, and Friday so that they're getting a hot meal, and then we're serving or giving them a frozen meal for Tuesday, Thursday, and the weekends, just to try to save us a little bit on our salaries during this time. But the meals that we provide meet nutritional guidelines, and we have to pay attention to the dietary needs of each person. So as I've learned since I've been the director now for about 2.5 years. It takes a lot of concentration to pay attention to those details and to make sure that we're serving each person as they need. They can't shop and cook for themselves, and so this program is really vital to the nutritional needs of older adults and the disabled. Right now, we serve about 61 people in Scappoose. That's about 37% of the total meals that we serve. And since last October, we've seen a 12% increase in the need for meals in Scappoose. So with cost increasing during the pandemic and just, because of supply issues and manufacturing, food, of course, is going up. And so we're requesting funds to help us cover these costs. And I would welcome any questions that you have.
Any questions? Thank you for everything you do with this program.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move to the next one. Tumbleweed Studios. Tumblewheel Studios. Sorry, I ran into a tumbleweed this last year. So, Jenna, are you with us?
That's okay. We get that all the time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Jenna Reineking, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of Tumbleweed Studios. We really appreciate you all taking the time to go over our application this year. Like so many other organizations, we had some really big plans for 2020, but had to put them on hold. And one of them was this new program that we're really excited to launch this year. It is our Teen Mentor and Artist Residency program. So a little bit about it, it's with the Teen Mentor program, it's a 4-month-long series of workshops available to high school age students in our city. And it gives them the opportunity to kind of build on their own talents and showcase their talents and experiment with different materials that they might not have access to, and just to try to build a more cohesive portfolio that they could use to apply to college so this is for students that are specifically interested in pursuing higher education in the arts. Part of this program would also be we would kind of teach them how to document their work, which is very important, so photography. And we would also do a cover letter writing workshop, which is very important. So that's one aspect of the program. And then the other aspect is this artist residency that would use our mobile classroom, our school bus, for those of you who haven't seen it. It's a converted 23-foot school bus. And this would be available to students. They would have to apply via an RFP. And one student would kind of win this opportunity to have this mobile classroom at their disposal. And then at the end of the 4 months, they would get to have an art show at like a local spot. So we were thinking maybe Cathedral Coffee or somewhere like that. That's kind of a brief rundown of the program.
Any questions?
I just have.
Mr. President?
Jenna, we spoke with Jeff this evening, or he presented before this regarding the potential mural to be painted by the library. And this program, am I correct, kind of would make that a reality, this teen mentorship program? That would be the group that would be helping create that mural?
Actually, it's interesting. So our Teen Mentor program, we conceived this before we ever knew about the mural. So it's possible that there will be some crossover in those students, but we, as he mentioned, we haven't even, we don't know who our students are going to be for the mural project yet. So the project that we're presenting for the community enhancement grant, that's a little bit different than the mural project, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I just want to thank you though for having your organization be a part of something for the community. So if that does come to fruition, that's a great chance to see the teens out there doing a mural for our community. But yeah, thank you for partnering with him on that
Yeah,
project.
of course. We're very excited.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very impressive program.
Thank you.
All right. Our final group, VFW Post 4362.
All right.
Yep. Just for you, Tom.
Start now.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you tonight?
Quite well.
Excellent.
VFW finds itself in a rather predicament this year, unexpected expense. They created a new branch of the military, the Space Force, and we find ourselves now having to put a new pillar up at the Veterans Park with a polished black granite stone on it. And it's an unexpected expense that was shocking because when we initially set up the, can I take this off?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll shoot that.
When we initially set up the memorial, it was a pretty reasonable expense for all of the black granite polished plaques. Subsequently, the company has been sold, and the company has a copyrighted, one of a kind method, and that's the reason they were bought. And the price went up considerably. It's beautiful stuff. They do a polished black granite with a laser cut and color. So we're going to add the Space Force into the circle of the Marines, Air Force, Army, Navy, and Coast Guard. And then we're going to have to remove the Veterans of Foreign Wars plaque from the pillar where the Space Force is going to occupy. And then Scott Parker was very gracious and gave us two beautiful monumental stones. And now we're going to put the Veterans of Foreign Wars plaque on one of those. But in his generosity, he gave us a stones that are just huge. And the cost is by the square inch for these polished black granites. So we're going to have to produce a Space Force black granite and a Veterans of Foreign Wars. And what's the cost on that, you think?
About $1,000 a square foot.
And what do you think we're going to get? 3,000 for the new one?
Probably be 2,000, 3,000, and then 8,000.
We're looking at something like over $4,000 and for the Space Force and the new Veterans of Foreign Wars plaque. So we're looking for some assistance on this. It's a beautiful memorial. There's no way around it that we cannot do the Space Force plaque. We have to do it. And then we're going to move the Veterans of Foreign Wars plaque, one of the new monumental stones, and it'll be complete. And we have some other plans for the monument also coming up this next fall. But this one was just unexpected to arrive at our doorstep. So with that, we're just looking for some financial assistance to help out on that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to add that the VFW has donated money to our Centennial effort too. We appreciate that.
You're very welcome. We'll be participating.
You've had good conversations about the helicopter.
Yes, I did.
Good. I'm glad we finally got that connected to someone.
I went up and viewed that. He's got it in his back lot. There's an H model sitting out there in the weeds. And it's he wants to give it to us. But it's like, I'm looking at it like, do I want a free boat? That's where the money starts. So we're going to do a lot of exploring on that.
They say the two best days of owning a boat is the day you buy it and the day you sell it.
32-foot Chris crab. Well, I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you.
Very much. Well, you guys, thank you for your service.
Is Kara's here. All right, next item on the agenda is the Grabhorn Park Ad Hoc Committee update to council. Got the chair of the committee, Kara Hines, here.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. And this is Kim. She's the vice chair.
Welcome, Kim.
Well, thank you so much for having us tonight. I'm really excited to present so far what we have. We've gotten through quite a bit of information over the past few weeks, so I'm excited to present tonight. So let's go to the first slide.
A question.
Oh, go ahead.
Is it helpful if we stop and ask questions during or wait till the end?
You can absolutely stop and ask questions.
Okay, whatever works for you guys. I don't want to stop your train of thought.
No, perfect. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
So I wanted to first begin to show you guys how we began this process. I know this is a brand new process. And so the first thing that we did was we sat down and discussed who were the stakeholders in this park. Who was this park really gonna represent and need to represent? So we came up with the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council, pool users, residents on the west side of Scappoose, recreational opportunities, people who are interested in just general recreation like tennis courts, pickleball, disc golf, basketball courts, people who are looking for more opportunities to sit and rest on trails, so looking for more opportunities for picnic benches and tables, people who are participating in youth and recreational sports like soccer and softball, and then also the dog park. Next slide. So we began the process by reviewing the background with the stakeholders, beginning to understand, and even so with Parks and Rec, we had a good understanding of the pool and the history behind the pool, but we needed to be able to demonstrate that to the other members who were fresh to the group. So we began to accumulate data and share data based off of the pool and the history of it, as well as the dog park and understanding how the dog park came to be, which was that it was created by a group of private citizens who essentially built it through donations and through labor and have been using it since that time. We then separated into, we broke down timelines and expectations and things that we would need to get through. And then we separated into 3 groups, pool and road, the amenities, and then also the environment and Scappoose Bay Watershed Council and the creek.
Can I stop you right there? So when you separated into 3 groups, I'm noticing that pool and road were put together.
Yes.
Maybe it's a misunderstanding of mine, but I didn't think that it was the lens of this group to determine if there was a road or not attached to the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So because the because the road is so intimately connected to the happenings of the park, for example, it is going right through the dog park.
Okay, so you're talking about that would take into consideration like the movement of the original placement of the dog park and okay.
Absolutely.
I wanted to know the lens of
absolutely
that work. Thank you.
So since that time, each work group has met at least twice in addition to GPAC in addition to the twice a month GPAC meetings. So we have had several meetings at this point. And we have had quite a bit of information. It's been very informative. Next slide. So some of the pertinent findings so far that we have discovered for the amenities group. And I don't have anything specific tonight for the watershed group, but one very pertinent finding that we have had, actually two, in regards to that, is that there's potentially wetlands in that area. It's still in the process of being certified, or what is the correct term? Okay, so they're not quite sure exactly the exact terrain, but it's something that we need to take into consideration. We need to consider the riparian area, and then we also need to consider a fish-friendly culvert if we are to keep the dog park in the same area. And so that understanding those things in conjunction with the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council has been really important. With the fish-friendly culverts, it was intended to help maintain the dog park in the original space. But one thing that we have learned is that may not be permittable by the DEQ. And so we are having conversations with ODFW this week, or Huel. Okay, so we're working to meet with ODFW to get more information as if this is even possible. If it's not possible, then the dog park will not exist. It will have to be moved to a completely different area. Another thing that we have learned about the dog park is that it's possibly one of the most highly used amenities that are already in that area. And by putting the road through it, it was cutting it in half when it actually needs to grow in order to fit the citizens of Scappoose.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So on the fish-friendly culvert, you're saying the current state of where the dog park is now isn't.
If there's a road that goes through
Okay,
it.
so you're talking about if there's a road, if the dog park has to be moved.
Well, so the road would go
okay
through the dog park.
Yes.
And then the dog park layout was going to be kind of, we're going to add to the side of it. So we're going to do that through putting a fish-friendly culvert.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not possible, then it's too small to be a dog park at that point.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, next one, no culvert will impact the placement of the dog park. Changing the park design will, of course, change all the work that they've looked at for the cut-fill balance. The second pertinent finding was really for the sports fields. There is a disconnect with the schools and our recreational sports, which has really limited the ability for youth leagues to use the school fields, which is creating a challenge. And we have learned that the current sports fields that they do have access to just aren't meeting the needs of our soccer and our softball players.
I have a follow-up. Sorry, I'm going to go all night. So I have found this to be extremely frustrating over the years. Have there been any updated conversations with someone with the district?
That's actually in my in my follow-up findings that we would like that to happen.
I did see that. Yeah, I just didn't know if you had.
So Brian Hogue, who runs the softball leagues, and Rocky Schwalge, who run the soccer, have both spoken to the athletic directors. This Scappoose High School athletic director, and they have had several issues and are learning that with COVID, the schools were able to stop play at any point in time. So like recreational fields could still be used, but schools were not allowing play.
Sure.
And so the teams that were relying on school fields were then just out of luck.
Sure.
And so many sports are also going year round. That is also creating issue because it's creating issues for the schools and the maintenance of fields. Also, so one of the last final issues is that Scappoose High School, if I'm correct, just went to a 5A. So that increased like the needs for the maintenance of the fields. So having the recreational leagues use the school field it's creating more challenges for the school, and the school may not have the budget for that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next slide. So for our considerations, having an ODFW consult so that we can actually learn if the fish-friendly culvert is possible. It is highly discussed that, so since the dog park was built by citizens with citizens' money, we would like to have it considered that the dog park is moved and we have a new location prior to anything going through it. So that's something that we would like to consider and see if that's possible. We are going to be presenting our findings and options for different parks and for different park amenities in a public setting. And we would like to see if there's an opportunity for city council to be present so that everyone can hear the feedback that we're getting based off of the parks that we have, or the park options that we have. We would also like to see if there is an opportunity to collaborate with the schools for field use. The other issue that Rocky and Brian shared was that there was no one person that they could really contact to reserve a field. So that also created an issue.
Between the school and the city, or just?
It was, yeah, the different schools. It used to be led by one person at the school district, and then it was kind of broken down in between the middle school and the high school. And then it would be like, well, no, you need to go talk to this person, or you need to go talk to this person. And it has created additional challenges that, of course, everyone's busy parents. It's a challenge. So whether or not in the future we would be able to create an opportunity to pool our field uses, it seems like it would be an excellent.
Is that a job for the school liaison to take care of?
Who's the school liaison? Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I mean, in a way, I always thought that it would be really cool if there's some sort of intergovernmental agreement where we had between the schools and the city's properties, one-stop shop for reserving sites. And I don't know how that would be set up or what that would look like, because the schools' fields, they need them at their time. So when they're open, it would be nice if there was like someone could go in and go, oh, hey, we can use that field.
Something like that would be fantastic. And based off of the limited potential flat land that we have to have fields, that may be something that we
flat dry
land, that may be something that we really need to consider.
And I think also we need to consider a second dog park somewhere.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
I have an idea, but we have to get property officially into our hands. That's the Cat Head property.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be great? Cat Head dog park.
I think that the dog park citizens would be very happy. And one thing I've also learned is they are absolutely okay with moving the dog park, as long as they would like more space. So they are not necessarily needing to stay in their current location. They are amenable to moving or having multiple spaces. But it is such a highly used space. It needs to be a top priority for our considerations. Okay, next slide.
All right. So I've been heading up the road and pool work group, and I apologize for having my back to you, but
You're fine.
I won't be able to see what I'm presenting.
I don't take anything personally.
All right. So just a quick overview of the research we've conducted to date. We went ahead and really put good use to some of the documents that have already been prepared and available through the city. We combed through the community survey that was conducted in November 2020. We looked at the transportation, that system plan, safety plan, the parks master plan, looked at the best practices document that Isaac had put together kind of at the end of last year about different, looking how you design parks and the different considerations. We referred to the alternatives local connection study that was recently done, and then obviously relied heavily on the initial Grabhorn development plan. So using all of that kind of as a baseline, we said, where do we need to fill in the gaps in terms of better understanding the constraints and needs for both of these features. So the research conducted, we went ahead and did some additional pool cost research
in addition to what had been done in advance of the survey that's currently out. We conducted interviews with police and fire chiefs to understand what their interconnectivity needs are in terms of community safety and emergencies. Recognizing that there are lots and lots of challenges with a pool, we wanted to look at alternatives. And so we also began to do some splash pad research to see if that might be a possibility, both cost-wise and just appropriately siting it within the park. We also looked at trends in through traffic in parks and have some examples of national trends in that. We looked at parks of similar sizes within the area that also have some similar constraints, wetlands about the same size, just to give us kind of a reference point of design, what might be possible in this space. And then, as Kara alluded to, we look forward to the upcoming community forum where we hope to get feedback on all of the info we've gathered to date. Next slide, please. So just a couple of the considerations that we did present to the broader GPAC group, and we'll be taking all these informations from the 3 work groups and beginning to figure out how we prioritize them and negotiate all of them. So these are the considerations we're putting on the table. Given the response in the public survey in November, there is strong public opposition to the road. We went back through and tried to kind of quantify it, and it was about a 20-to-1. So there's, at least from a public perception standpoint, there's a challenge there. Alternative.
Can I stop there? I don't recall those. I mean, I'm just curious. Did you look through the verbal comments, the multiple choice? I don't know if.
Yeah, so that was one of the challenges with the survey is it was rich in qualitative information, but the quantitative information was a little bit difficult to tease through. So we had to kind of put them in the column, like this was a comment for the road, this was a comment against the road. And that was the only way we could do some quantitative analysis on the survey.
Okay. I guess I'm just kind of hung up on the word overwhelmingly opposed. That didn't stand, I don't recall that, but I might need to look at the survey again.
I think it was, from my interpretation, I would agree that there was the comments held a lot of feelings.
Sure.
How we quantify the qualitative information from those, there is a little bit of subjectiveness, but I do lean on the committee to, use their expertise to be able to do that and provide that feedback to us. So.
Yeah, and we can get additional kind of.
Yeah, I guess
how that was tallied.
Would love. I mean, I'm not trying to say that I don't think people said that. I need a total refresher.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that.
Yeah, we can get that from the work group member who did that. Mm-hmm.
A question too. Did you consider that some of the comments came from a pretty much localized area around the park itself? There's a majority of those comments and didn't hear a lot in that particular area from people on the east side or on the south side of the city. So that would be another thing. I think you probably already have taken that in consideration, but there's a lot of population out there that really didn't comment on that because it wasn't important to them.
Yeah, and that's really what we hope to get in the broader community forum, more voices.
Yeah, I'm not saying one way or the other, but I do think, to be fair, it was kind of came from that network of people around there, which I just think that needs to be considered as you move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Better inclusion of the feedback. Let's see, alternative emergency interconnection options, recognizing that this is very much a priority and a need from a safety perspective. There needs to be something there, and also to, facilitate the utilities that need to go in. There's a need for this road to be there. What that road looks like, I think there are a range of options. In speaking with the chief of fire, the fire chief, he said he would really not be in favor of speed bumps, anything that could slow an emergency vehicle down, not in favor of bollards, which take time to unlock and they're about 30 pounds each, would be in favor of a locking gate if we chose to not make it a connection like a residential connection, but one that is available to the community when in case of emergency. That would need to be a minimum 20 feet wide, and it could be something kind of similar to what we have for the CZ Trail. Environmental concerns, we've already called out the culvert. If a culvert cannot be put in, we'll have to be looking at a bridge. And again, it's going to have to be a fairly substantial bridge that can hold at least 7,500 pounds to safely enable large fire trucks and other emergency vehicles across. So that needs to be considered.
Can I ask where that information came from?
Chief Pritchard.
Okay, thank you.
Safety concerns. So through traffic is a safety issue for many stakeholders that are engaged in the park conversation. Just having traffic through in an area where dogs and kids are playing and perhaps not paying attention, it does kind of create a tension there. And so they would like to see, that consideration be a priority. And I don't know, Chief Norma, if you've been able to get that data off the speed thing yet, but it would be interesting to see kind of what the current rate of speed is since that equipment was there for.
Is this on Captain Couture Way we're talking?
Mm-hmm.
You guys talked, since we're talking about Captain Couture Way as part of the whole thing. So I've had at least a couple of people come to me talking about maybe removing the parking along the road and just having them park up above the overflow parking lot, maybe in some future point paving it to a parking lot standard and removing it from there so that even at that slower speed, if a car darts out from a car, you might not be able to stop.
Yep. That was something that Chief Norm had raised as well. And I think everyone was in agreement that that's a really good common sense improvement that can be made. And also potentially, maybe when you pave that upper parking way, making it a one-way in, one-way out, potentially to kind of help people naturally exit the park through that road rather than routing through the neighborhood. It might just cut down on some neighborhood traffic as well, was one idea that they're thinking about. Park best practices, a fairly prominent national study did find that automobile bans within a park actually increase park use. And our understanding in terms of the competitiveness of this grant really is based on, increasing, mobility, healthy options for the community. And so anything we can do to make it a more attractive space that will bring, people in to enjoy might make us more competitive.
So on that, and this isn't taking a position on the road or anything, I know that I've read those studies, many of those parks were larger, like Mount Tabor Park. Parks are 20, 30, 40, 50 acres that have roads going through the park. Then they close them. One they haven't done, like in Portland, their Washington Park still has the roads where, because the parking's all along there. But, in a lot of those, you don't see it where it's a neighborhood park that has multiple uses. We're talking about ball fields and tennis courts and dog parks where people are coming in and doing that. That's a different style of park than what I've seen in the studies that I've been reading on these larger parks where they reduce the access to cars for people walking, hiking, biking, horseback riding, that type of thing, use of those style of parks, which I would see more as our the park up on top of the hill, or the 80 acres we have on top of the hill that we'd like to one day really develop. I think that's more the target of that kind of research than it is for 10-acre neighborhood park that is surrounded by neighborhoods and roads on multiple sides. I mean, obviously, I don't want roads cutting them up, especially doesn't make sense on a park that small.
Yeah, I was going to say most of those examples, I know Councillor Haugen gave us one of those articles. They were either larger capacity acre-wise, or they had a large population of people that were coming into them. And
they're not typically ball fields. They're not typically,
sure.
I get a chance to drive around Portland all the time, so I see the stuff about 10 parks closing. I know which ones they are, because when I'm picking up or dropping people off driving Uber, it's a different pickup or drop off now. But there are roads being closed in those parks, but those are literally these hiking and biking trail parks that are massive, where you go into picnics or it's blocked off. Literally, I took somebody down a gravel road to a wedding because the gate was opened specifically for this wedding down this little gravel road that cars were allowed to access during the time of the wedding, but it's locked up when it's not. And, you know, but it's real hand experience, but I mean, I see a difference, for me, I see a difference between this park where we're putting in all these activities, where we're gonna, if there's not a road, there's still gonna be parking that we're gonna have to get cars into. And so balancing that versus when we're talking about these larger 40, 50 acre parks where they're closing down roads so that people can feel safely riding their bikes and everything through them as well.
No, I can appreciate that point, and I think that's something that we can go back and look at as a group to see, yeah, if, you know, different parks kind of fall in different categories along with their uses and what's happening with the roads. We can certainly dive into that rather than.
And I do disagree with Chief Pritchard on speed bumps because Portland has them all over the place. They first started putting them in, I hated them. Now it's just, okay, I have to be going the speed limit.
Well, I think, I don't know, Chief, if, I feel like he's been in a conversation with us. I don't know if it was traffic safety or something in here where, you know, there's been people using back roads by the high school, like as a bypass. You know, we've talked about potentially putting in speed bumps. And I think Chief Pritchard has said, you know, it's not ideal, but that he's in favor of those longer or mild, not the short, those short high ones,
Right.
but more of the long, slower, you know,
Well,
the speed humps.
humps.
like an example he gives is if you're in the back of an ambulance,
Sure.
you're hurt, you want to go over a speed bump.
Totally.
So that's what he brought up. So, you know, the thing is, you know, the road with the calming devices, there's different ways to do calming devices. It doesn't have to be a speed bump. It just needs to be looked at like we talked to, you know, it's, you're going to put a road there, then let's make sure we take every avenue to make it safe for the neighborhood and the park.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that should be the goal. What Chief Miller just said, that should be the goal.
Yeah,
Making
no
everyone
matter
safe.
what the outcome is. Yeah, for sure.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
That's right.
I'd just like to ask, so I think this is a very important topic in the regards to way that potential vehicles would interact with this space. And so I would just be curious to know if, besides speed bumps, are there other calming device strategies that the work group has thought about implementing as part of the I guess the design, the landscaping? I know that there's a variety of different ways. Is that something that the work group is planning to identify as part of the final proposal that they will be providing back to council?
We can look at others. We just looked at the speed bumps, bollards, locking gate as an option.
Okay.
But yeah, we can look at other options as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then just the cost. The cost of an interconnection between the two parks really does need to be considered. And if this is something that the city of Scappoose is having to pay for, you know, what is being sacrificed from a public works infrastructure perspective that might not be able to be paid for. So just, you know, making sure that those considerations are on the table. Next slide, please, for the pool. Did we have, yeah, was there a missing slide?
No, it went twice.
Oh, okay.
Over there.
Well, my apologies for that. I can give you a rundown of the pool. Like I said, we've been looking at splash pads as another form of, you know, allowing some kids to play in the water minus having a full-fledged pool. So in terms of pool costs, we looked at the pool costs associated with Carlton Pool. It is a pool that would also be a 6-lane pool, which is what was originally slated in the Grabhorn proposal. First of all, I think we need to assess if a 6-lane pool would truly meet the needs of the community. You know, is that really ample to have a shallow enough space for young kids? You know, a deep enough space for older kids? I think that's a key question. The cost of that pool is far less than the estimated costs that are presented in the current pool survey. I think the annual operating costs are about $84,000 a year, ranging between $84,000 and $120,000 a year. And so it's about a fourth or a fifth less of the cost of what we have put into the survey. So I think there's kind of a question about, you know, when we get the survey information back, how much can we rely on the public input, because the cost projections might not truly be representative. I also do not believe that user fees are factored into the as an offset to the operating costs. And so basically it was like, hey, if you, would you pay for a great pool? This is not a user fee scenario. Here's what your property taxes would look like. So I would just say that we might, look closely at that information and the results from that lens.
When you looked at the annual operating costs, what was everything?
So the city of Carlton, we have that spreadsheet as an appendix. I don't know if you have the appendix in there. Yeah. So that's just one piece of the information that we received. It actually was from about a 20-page document from the city's webpage that really went over their whole budget. So anyway, splash pads on average are about $100,000 to $300,000 to construct. It can be done in a way that will meet a broader range of ages than I think what people typically think of with splash pads. Operating costs are about $50,000 a year. We would recommend, if we were to even go down this avenue, to look at a recirculating system, which adds about $25,000 to the cost, but significantly saves on water. There are we've identified a couple of just kind of site constraints with that. There's some federal rules around kind of how much dry space you have to have on certain ends and how close it has to be to a bathroom. So those would be some additional things we would need to consider in terms of where it might be sited on the property if that was of interest. And then just some final additional considerations. There's the trees along the Wesco property that I believe would be slated for removal if we did a full road. We would ask that it maybe be considered if it's an option to keep those. There's some concern that if those are removed, they serve as a wind block right now. And so it could really make that property a wind tunnel and be a little more challenging for users. So just thinking about how we maybe minimize the impact there. The best practices for park developments with similar constraints and sizes. Those are the ones that we've begun to assemble. So we'll continue to be referring to that. In this process, the transportation system plan and the parks master plan, it's become evident that they really are in need of some updating because they are in some places have competing priorities for the community and need to be harmonized. And things have changed, I think, enough, particularly with the parks plan, that it's hard to kind of look at this project in the context of the big picture at this point. And we think that's really important as well. And then just, I think this has been a great process. I congratulate you guys on finding fabulous work group members. Everyone has been productive. Everyone has been a great contributor. We really couldn't have gone this far, this fast without the dedication of everyone. So I would say for all future processes like this, consider this approach. It's been good.
I have a couple questions about that. Thank you. Scroll back up. Oh, it's Yul. Thanks, Yul. No, you're right where we need to be. I just wanted to go back to the trees. Those are not on our property.
I don't believe they are. No.
They are now.
So I know that they're slated to start maybe putting in an application for development on that property. So we can't even guarantee if those trees would remain when they choose to develop.
I'm not aware of any application, but that is correct. It's
Sure.
their choice.
It's their property.
Their property. Okay.
Is that the Buxton or
That's not the, oh, okay, got it.
the Buxton one I thought was slated, or is the one above?
Wesco.
There's nothing on Smith Road.
Nothing's being,
Aware of proposed. No, that's
okay.
Private land.
Well, yeah, I'm just asking.
There's the wording, the Buxton, yeah.
So maybe it wasn't clear though, because on the plan, it did look like the trees were on the Grabhorn property and fall within where the road.
I don't know if those trees
need to.
Yeah, I don't have it in
But
front of
I
us.
believe they're on the private parcel, in which case it wouldn't be
Okay.
our decision.
We don't have that choice. Okay,
I've talked to that owner and he thinks he owns them, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't think we do. We don't really have a choice on the trees. Okay, and then I guess I'm just having I don't have enough background information. I've clicked in on some of the meetings, which is so great they're on YouTube, but not all of them. So I guess I'm just trying to understand the perspective of the TSP needing to be updated through the lens of creating a park plan. I guess I just wanted to know a little bit more about that.
I guess just better understanding where the connections can be made, pairing that against the public spaces that may or may not be anticipated. This kind of came to light with seeing that the Buxton learning that the Buxton property potentially could be developed.
Sure.
Because, you know, in the Parks Master Plan, it's not slated as park, but it is to be considered potentially for parkland, I think, if it were ever to become available.
The Buxton property.
Yeah, in the Parks Master Plan. And so just kind of understanding kind of with those land use changes and, you know, how the connections have been proposed or have not been proposed or may change, it just needs to all be kind of updated and harmonized so that, you know, maybe we don't need a full-fledged road there if there are alternatives potentially because different land is changing with different uses and that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any additional questions?
Any other questions?
I have a question. It's more for Dave, but if there wasn't a pool there, there's a comment in here that there might be room for like having a separate softball fields, like be 2 softball fields, if I understood that correctly. You think that would be possible if there's no pool there?
It is possible, however, early surveying of the property, I think it was a 13-foot elevation change from south to north, which would create some problems trying to create, you know, stair-stepped fields. The footprint isn't as large as we originally thought when we started doing field layout. I don't know, as your committee probably did as well. And so it was pretty restrained to try to get 2 fields of that size, that depth of outfield. So it is possible, but I think you would do some maybe modifications to try to level out the property because that upper portion is sloped up more than the rest.
Within the appendix, we do have size information for the different fields that are proposed.
Something else would have to give them, wouldn't it? Like maybe a splash pad or pickleball courts or something like that, or would we maybe that's too far ahead. I don't know.
So at this time, it has been mostly sharing information based off of the citizens and the surveys that we have seen. So for the amenities, we discussed the top 3 stakeholders, the people who were already in the original proposed plan, which were the dog park, the softball field, and the soccer field. And then we chose the top 5 other amenities that were proposed based off of the surveys. And so next session, we will begin the kind of prioritization and deliberation, and then we'll begin to have more of a process on what amenities we will be choosing. We are also looking at kind of dual purpose area fields. So for example, if we do choose to do a tennis court, there are sometimes options where we can do a tennis court / pickleball just to utilize our space.
I do want to say that the original design that was presented, pool that was on there was purely for exhibit only. It was not actually designed to be what that pool is going to be. It was just conceptual. They just shoot the 6 lanes to make it identifiable that, oh, that's a pool. So just to clear the record, that never really got designed.
It was an icon, not an actual design.
But it had the proper footprint. Yeah. And the footprint was there, just
all right. Is that everything?
Well, I do have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So originally when we began this process, it was, the idea was that with our final proposal, we came to you with 2 separate proposals, one with a pool and one without, and we had layouts. So as we are digging in here, we are discovering just different information. For example, like learning that Buxton potentially could be a development. learning that we might have a wetland in our space. So that has created challenges for how we would, in fact, give you two proposals that with layout ideas. Now, we still want to kind of be able to pencil out different layouts, but we were wondering what you guys would like proposed. Would you prefer kind of more of a wish list with some mocked up ideas? Would you prefer something that's kind of been vetted out with the city engineer and the city planner first? Just so we can get better ideas for this next phase.
Right, a stumping question. I mean, for me, you know, maybe the two option idea might be too constricting to what it sounds like you guys have ended up doing.
We have come
in the
across
process.
Yeah.
So it's like the wetland, for me, the wetlands can be mitigated based on, you know, like floodplains, fill and cut here and there.
Right.
So, I mean, those are cost questions that I think we'd come across. I remember this from the Veterans Park when we built that. So, but I think that, you know, maybe having two base with some options would be kind of like base without a pool, base with a pool.
Mhm.
Then here's some options based on these different things. Might be a better route to go instead of having you guys constricted to two things.
Those were some of the challenges that we were coming across. Like if we have a 2-lane road versus a road with a locking gate, that's going to look very different. We're not going to put the playground, if that's the option we go through, like right next to the road. So as we're beginning to lay these things out, the more information that we can have, we almost need more information than we have access to. So that's just a challenge that we've come across.
It might be just a challenge that we're going to have to face because whatever we decide, say we decide to build the park without a road, and 15 years down the road, the council then sits here, says, we need a road there. They're going to build a road there.
Well, let's clarify. There will be a road there. We're just not sure if it's going to connect through.
Yeah, there's
There
going to
has
be something that,
Want
so
us to enter into
entering into the park, more than likely if that Shoemaker property up above it ever develops into housing, which it's zoned to do in the future, and there will be a requirement from the city that there's a road right there to access those areas as well. So there's future likelihood that there could be, but whether or not there's a full-time crossing is a whole different question.
Right.
So, I mean, it's almost as if we need options that show road and no road and pool and no pool.
I have.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Right.
Here's what it would look like with a road, no road.
I mean, I think really, you know, the ideal for me is like more of a needs analysis, right? What does the community want in these parks? And, you know, because there's going to be so many issues that are going to arise to how it can be developed and how it can, you know, flow together that the city's going to have to work hard on trying to figure out how that even ties together. Because, you know, I mean, even we don't know, you know, something could throw the whole design off too, right? And then it's not the exact design that you want to come up with. So for me, it's more of like a needs. What are the, you know, what are the needs and what are the absolutely not needs and there. So
then another consideration you had mentioned about cat head. Do we have a timeline on that?
Has that been, that'll be transferred when the whole,
It hasn't been platted yet, so it's
yeah,
not,
once it
it's
gets
not a legal
plotted.
lot, so it cannot be transferred to the city at this time.
But it will be once, pretty much once the roads are done and they come to turn in once they turn the roads over, that's when everything's going to be plotted.
The first phases, those should be platted probably relatively soon. We're not there quite yet, but we're getting there. So when that happens, we will get that property at that time.
Eventually it will be.
Yes.
I mean, that's in the, we've been
Correct. No, it's
100%,
going to happen.
yes.
We just, it's not a legal lot yet, so okay.
So I think just in sitting as a liaison for the Parks and Rec, just those couple years that I was, I think that this group is so good about looking at what do we have available? What does the public want? Where can we put it? And so I think also knowing that there's going to be 14 acres of open space out
by the airport, things like, disc golf or larger amenities or more spaced out things, dog park, et cetera, keeping those in the back of your mind that you can't fit it all on this one piece of property. So how can we, like Councilor Polling is saying, how can we prioritize? And I don't want to say which voices are loudest, when it comes to sports amenities or whatever, but what fits on this piece of property and what could maybe be saved for an open space later. And I get that, whether there's a road or not a road or,
These are just
I mean,
design questions or, but I mean, I think
I
that
get it, but if
Polling
you're-
put it right on the head.
if we're just looking at amenities, if you just have that rectangle, and I get you want to know if it goes through or not and where the dog park is going and all that, but there's just so much up in the air. And I think that we know the dog park is a priority and making more dog parks or moving it to larger spaces is at the top of our list.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I know you guys are taking this so seriously. We cannot thank you enough. I mean, the amount of time and energy you're putting into this is astronomical. I mean, like you should, I mean, not that you shouldn't have been asked to, but I mean, you're doing an amazing job, especially chairing this group as well. So I don't want to say just give it your best, just submit a C project, but
Find an online project.
yeah, copy something. No, I think there's no one right answer and no one right way, and what you give us will not be the end all be all. And just,
I think having those thoughts are helpful.
I would also like to, maybe you guys have the discussion with the committee that when you're done with this project, maybe take on updating the Parks Master Plan. Because I do believe that it is in need, but within a larger context of, one of the wordings I put on our parks goals are making sure that, everyone in the community is within a 10-minute walk of a park, and our weakness is really the southeast area. And it'd be really nice to see, with the quality of work we've seen just from here, I think we've got the right group of people to do that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for everything.
That was not an easy subject. It looked more complicated than it appeared, and you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So one of the public comments was Marissa Jacobs wanted to come, and it was specifically on the grab horn.
Uh-huh.
I assumed that she assumed our meeting started at 7 when we moved it up to 6:30 and missed public comments. So I'm going to allow her to make her public comments now. So if you'd like to listen. Marissa, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am. Thank you very much. And
oh, you're welcome.
My apologies. I just have the city council meeting calendared every other Monday, 7 p.m.
Okay. We do it on purpose to avoid you. No, just kidding. If that was true, we wouldn't be letting you talk right now. So
right? Exactly. Thank you very much. I appreciate the accommodation. So good evening, Mayor Burge, City Council, and city staff. My name is Marissa Jacobs, and I'm speaking to you this evening as a local resident regarding the Grabhorn Park development. First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Parks and Rec Committee, as well as the extension of the Ad Hoc Grabhorn Committee for the good work they're delivering for the community. The committee members' logical approach to tackling the park redesign is thoughtful and grounded in facts. The approach makes it really easy for citizens such as myself to follow along in their journey. They're bringing thoughtful questions and innovative ideas forward in these discussions. But I must say, I have been a bit disheartened to hear back in May 3rd and then to hear it again today, Councillor Grayson, how you're really trying to separate the conversation of the park and the road. And that you also had made a comment that was a little disheartening that back on May 3rd, that the recommendations for that the ad hoc committee put forward, the council doesn't need to, or is not required to implement the recommendations. So I really hope that with you seeing the good work that they're putting, that the council does actually consider a lot of this good work that they're putting forward. They're bringing such great innovative ideas to be considered. I am concerned about some of the information that was released during public meeting last Thursday. It was confirmed by city staff that Kusera Way is to be extended through Westco land, through the Westco land property west of Grabhorn and Buxton property south of Veterans Park for development to create a true north-south 30 bypass through our parks and neighborhoods. It was further confirmed that the Buxton property currently has 44 units in development with the city planner. To accommodate the Buxton development, the road would have to be built up to like a certain height, about 5 feet, I believe, enough of a retaining wall to allow development closer to the floodplain. This was extremely shocking to hear. It also is questioning the amount of transparency that City Council is providing to this community. It's impossible for the Parks and Rec Committee to design a park without talking about this road. This road is a contentious issue, and it's something that was brought to light through the release of the design of the initial plan of the planned park. And while I understand and been hearing that the comments of we can build a road without public comment, I understand, however, there is a lot of public concern, and not only was there a 20-to-1 ratio on the survey, there was almost 300 people on a petition that are very much not seeing the reasoning for it. So hiding behind words like connectivity or needing for emergency services, or there's arrows on the map on this showing the connection. I have to say that we can't hide behind those phrases anymore. We really need to be asking for the data, the analysis that shows the community the need for this road. And putting a road through a park is something that will probably always be contentious, but it's also looking more now like this road is really about more of a private interest to allow developers to come in and develop properties where a park is going to be impacted. So I appreciate you taking the time to allow me speak out of turn. But again, I want to thank the park members for the work that they're doing. And I really do encourage City Council to take their recommendations into consideration when they submit the final product. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. I just wanted to respond on the Buxton property development. I'm not sure if it's looking at like a planned development or a standard development.
So we don't actually have a complete application on the Buxton property. There, because of its location and because of plain issues, there are a lot of issues that would need to be resolved prior to that, including them going through what's called both a CLOMAR and a LOMAR process with FEMA. Our planner has asked them a series of questions, almost 4 pages of questions that we need the answers on prior to it being a complete application, such as issues that have come up tonight, like cut and fill. I mean, those are, if we're looking about water and where it goes and how to prevent flooding, these are all very important issues that we would need clarity on prior to even having a complete application. And at that point, when there finally is a complete application, so that's when the developer would have complied with federal, state, and local requirements. At that point, we would have a better idea of exactly what that application could even look like, because there likely will be some setback and other issues. So as far as how many units there would be or exactly how that would be built and served, those are all issues that are kind of dictated by federal law, state law, and then your local code. We of course need clear and objective standards and all of that. And the good news is that because of the requirements under our code are pretty robust, they're also pretty robust because of FEMA's requirements. And so eventually, probably not in the next couple of months, because the FEMA is taking a while to process things, we'll have a better idea of what that development could look like and how many units there would be, as well as the alignment.
And Peter, it could come in 2 different formats. It could come as just a typical land use application, in which it would go before the planning commission, thumbs up or down based on meeting the law, correct?
Right. This will go in front of the planning commission and if appealed to the council.
But if it's a plan development, which is an option within our code, there's plan developments, then that actually comes before council, and we actually have more flexibility because we're not as quasi-judicial about it.
Correct.
Which is why the basketball court is in the backside of one of the planned developments back behind Fred Meyer.
Right, so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the public to participate in this process. And, you know, this project has been, I think that staff's very aware that this is a project that there will be likely a lot of public participation.
What distance are we doing notification? So like when the Buxton property goes to develop, will the neighborhood that Marissa lives in, are they within the distance to be notified, I assume?
I believe so. In addition to just the public noticing, we're going to make sure that people are very aware of this because we expect a lot of public participation. We want to make sure that people are well informed of any benefits and burdens associated with the development. So this is going to be, we've had some projects in the past that haven't had those sort of floodplain and other issues and have had kind of you know, not a whole lot of public participation. But this is one that we expect there to be a lot of, and just because of its location under our code, they're required to provide a ton of information that will let the neighbors that might be impacted by it educate themselves and then fully participate in it.
So yeah, the Buxton probably is going to be a long process, but I think that, you know, I mean, I think the one thing that people have to always remember is that when someone has a private piece of property, if they meet the code that it's zoned for, the cities have a very hard time saying, we can't just say no because we don't like it. We can only have the code what the code is, and we have to accept it. And, you know, sometimes it's not ideal. You don't always have to like what's being built there, but the property owner owns the property. We've got the zoning and building codes that they meet. We can't say no. And I think that that's part of Senate Bill 100, right? From way back when.
Certainly, you know, your code is required to have clear and objective standards. Again, this is a project where we have federal law implications, state law implications, and local implications. So this is going to be far more complex than most land use applications that are in front of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. But thank you very much, Marissa, for your input. It's greatly appreciated that hearing that this committee is doing so much good work, since I know you're watching them. And that's good. It's good to hear. I love having citizens that are effective. You know, I mean, I've gone through hundreds of meetings where there's no one here giving us input, and sometimes not getting input. We're having to shoot from the hip going, is this the right thing to do based on what we feel? So it's nice having someone giving us input. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, maybe we don't need to look at trying to develop the parkland right now. If there's development opportunities to increase housing, maybe those should take priority first at looking at that more holistically for the community versus putting the park in, given that there is this tension and the competing priorities, given a road and the concern about safety and livability and whatnot. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that the Buxton property impacts the discussion of the road or no road on the Grabhorn property, because the Buxton property's road will be JP West, obviously. That's where they're going to be connecting into.
How it came across in the session was that the road was extending all the way through, that the development of the road is to take in consideration these two development opportunities. That's how the information came across to me in the meeting. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and like I said, you know, we can make the decision to build the park without the road today. 20 years down the road, different group of 7 people here could make the exact opposite decision. So, you know, I mean, the one thing we can't do is we can't bind a future city council in their decision making. We can only make the decisions that we believe are good right now for the future. But having as much input from the community as possible is equally important. So whether I agree or disagree with anyone, I appreciate your words. And thank you again very much, Melissa. All right, thank you to the Grabhorn Parks Committee and soon to be future, Parks Master Plan Update Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You guys
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is a water rates work session. Mr. Sukow.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. So on May 17th, we came to you with a work session that presented some water rate scenarios. We wanted to get feedback from council on. In that discussion, it led to the need for some more data to present to you regarding amount of users in each water usage column. The water billing staff has worked with Steve Donovan to come up with that data, and we're here tonight to present that to you and hopefully home in on some future rates that will be on this year's fee resolution. So with that, I'll give you Steve Donovan.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. We've got a PowerPoint presentation, very short slides, and we will quickly and crisply go through this. And what we're doing is simply following up on what you directed us to do. So, if we could loop through. Where we left you on May 17th, we're going to review the consumption. This is the heart of the matter that we talked about last time, is we've got to count noses, who's using water where. We've got an answer for you. Go ahead. We've got a recommendation for you. Next steps. And then, of course, questions and comments. So, we presented 3 cases last time for rate increases, 2.5%, the hybrid case that Dave articulated and did a good job on, and then the 5%, which is the water master plan rate case. So that brings us up to the options that were there. Staff will gather neighboring communities' comparable water basin commodity rates relative to Scappoose. This is, Councilor Hagen wanted to know that, and we took, the base charge is easy, and we'll show you those, and then the commodity charge is now expressed in dollars per 100 gallons, which is the way you bill. All of the other communities bill in different units. So some are in 100 cubic feet, some are in cubic feet, some are in 1,000 gallons, so we corrected everything to the way you look at the world. We're going to come back to the council with observed 2020 water consumption data, the noses. And Jill, and her staff, and the folks here at City Hall, they did backflips for us to gather this data. Your billing system is very, very common. It's used all over the state, but it's not a relational database. So we had to take out the chisel and the hammer to get the data out of it, but we got it. And then time is of the essence. We said that last time, and we're going to continue to say that. So we don't want to get into this paralysis of the analysis situation. This isn't that complicated. So here we go. Monthly base charges. This is the chart. And what Council Hagen we were saying is since 2011, any rate increases on water have always been done to the base charge. So your base charge has always been going up. And as you can see, relative to other communities, you're right up there on a monthly fee. Finance people love that. We talked about that. That's very predictable revenue. But it doesn't give the customer an opportunity to avoid and control based on his or her usage. Now here's the commodity charges I talked about in dollars per 100 gallons. And as you can see, since we've not been raising that commodity charge, yours is relatively low compared to the rest of the communities out there. And St. Helens and Portland are all quite up there. And what that means is they've got a very low base charge and they generate their revenue based on consumption. And this can be a bitter pill too, because we want to say conserve, and we'll, as Dave pointed out, if we conserve water, we can avoid future increments of capacity, right? Save on future capital costs. But from a finance standpoint, we want to sell all the water we can because we want to bring money in the door. So that's the balance that you have to see. Go ahead, Hugh. So now here is the ta-da. What this table shows, and hold off on the graph for a second, is your current consumption blocks, 0 to 50, 100 gallon units, 51 to 75, 76 to 100 and over. What you see there is in those first two blocks, they're both priced at 38 cents. In 2020, out of 2,804 observations, 87% of all of those folks were in the first two blocks getting priced the lowest rate. There is no conservation pricing in your system. There is no trigger to push people to lower consumption. Pretty interesting. And that was your question. Where are these noses and what are they doing? And then your question, which was a good one, is why do we have 4 blocks? Well, you don't need 4 blocks. It's pretty clear. So go ahead, Jewel. So as you can see, in the first 2 blocks represents 87% of all the observations. And they got no incentive to do anything other than to keep consuming what they're doing because they're both being charged 38 cents. We've got some outliers out here on the outside. They're never going to change their consumption patterns for whatever reason. Either they want to pay, and they don't mind paying because they need very green lawns, or in this case, there might be some outliers. Maybe there's some commercial customers buried in there that we're not seeing. We're not going to change their behavior. Go ahead, Huel. So here's our staff recommendation. Do away with 4 blocks, go back to 3 blocks. Put a sense of price signal in those blocks now. And we'll start out at 40 cents in the base block, 42 in the next block, so we can push some of those folks lower, and then 44 cents in the outlier block over 75, who those folks are probably not going to change their behavior anyway. So, go ahead, Huel.
Well, unless you do what Las Vegas just did and
oh yeah,
ban some type of gas.
Yeah, they got the water police, Yeah. So here is our staff recommendation, short and sweet. Sort of. Monthly base charge, 2.5%. We go from $34.65 to $35.52. And the proposal would be we talked about this last time, because you do adjust your rates every year for the Engineering News Records Construction Cost Index. The proposal would be the greater of the construction cost index, or 2.5%. And then finally, the water volumes, we go from 4 blocks to 3 blocks. And here are the prices. Thank you.
Any questions? Look like you're generating one. Councilor
Yeah,
Foster.
my wheels are spinning on this. So yeah, as we left here last time, I was really being hopeful that we would look at ways of being able to price where the conservation could be the key component of how we could help drive down the amount of water that's going out. But I also do understand Public Works need of generating those revenues to ensure that our infrastructure is planned out for the future. So knowing that only 13% of people, based on the 3-block system, 13% of ratepayers, would only be, I guess, still being charged at that 44 cents per gallon. I would be curious to know, why aren't we pushing that rate up even further to help incentivize that they would look into coming into the 51 to 75 tier category? Because these are residential lines, am I correct? And so it doesn't have to do with our industrial potential of use of water. But granted, we do want to keep a flow of that water available to them. So I would be curious to understand, why aren't we looking at 46 cents for that particular group?
Easy, because we didn't think you'd want to do that. Because we know this council doesn't like to raise rates just for the sake of raising rates. Otherwise, you bet, I'd love to see 46 cents. I'd like to see that block out there higher. But I also know that some of those people out in that block aren't going to change their behavior anyway. So now that's a policy question for you on the council. You want 46 cents, you want 52 cents, you want 90 cents? It's policy, pure policy.
Councilor
What
Miller.
you're doing is setting up a simple incentive-based pricing structure. That's what it is.
Thank you. Councilor Miller.
So in looking at the 0 to 50, I know you're recommending going from 4 blocks to 3 blocks, but what about the senior citizens that are single, living on a fixed income? Couldn't we make another block for like 0 to 25 or 0 to 50?
Well,
And make it more fair to those people that are on very restricted incomes?
sure.
Not fair, but just.
But what we normally see with low-income seniors is they're very low on their consumption anyhow. The preponderance of the revenue that we get from those citizens is from the base charge.
I'm not looking at it from what we get. I'm looking at trying to help them out.
They're already helping themselves out by being low consumers of water. So they're being able to avoid and control. They're not big consumers of water. They're small household sizes, typically 1 to 2 people in a household. And they are, I did a rate study in King City. Do you know where King City is?
Yes, bigger.
Yeah, yeah. Their consumption per capita was less than 1/3 of the average single-family house in the outlying districts. It's amazing, a little water. But you think about it, it's a 1-person household in a very efficient, probably small house with 1.5 baths, something like that.
I get that that's one way to look at it, but it's kind of failed logic in my point that I'm trying to make, because they would still be paying less. I get you're saying that they're using less, but they would still be paying less also if we did something with another block here.
Would you feel comfortable, you're saying if there was something more like of a 0 to 30 kind of a,
Well, I think we're missing, first off, I think we're missing the data to see how much of that there is. And so I would like to see, and I thought this is what we were going to get, I thought we were going to get more data or niche data on the usage consumption so that we could look at that and say, okay, these are what our rates need to be, and look at ways of helping people on restricted incomes. And also properly making a price point for those that clearly, don't really care about costs, or, watering their yard at 1 p.m. summer when it's 100-degree out.
I think it was maybe 3-4 years ago, we had a senior citizen come in, brought his bill in, and I think he was complaining that that base charge was going up. Basically, he was saying, I have to pay this just to turn on my water, but I don't really use water. I don't really, I don't flush the toilet very often. I don't, like he used like no water at all, but he still had to pay that base rate. So are you saying if we could somehow reward those people that really, that everybody pays the base rate, but then on top of that, they're not really going above and beyond much. So you're saying you would feel more comfortable if there was a 4th category, but for like the uber conservative water people? Like
well, I'm just
the 0, yeah.
I'm just looking at ways to make the income more affordable for the income restricted people. Obviously, I think the fairest way to do that and the most practical, if we look at one side only, is that the base rate be lower. But I'm also hearing that for city finance wise, and just being able to, come up with what the calculations are going to be for at least base rates, that would be really hard for city to do. So, I think if you really dissect it, I think the base rate is probably, based on what you just shared, most logic would be that base rate be lower for those people too, but I don't know how that plays into finances. I'm just looking at ways to, does anybody here know off the top of their head what the numbers are for like 0 to 25 or?
So if you were using 2,500 gallons a day, you'd be paying $9.50 at today's rate, $9.50 for your usage rate. If you're using 5,000 gallons a month, you'd be paying $19, double that. So you do get, by not using water, still a pretty nice discount off of what you're doing because you're not using it. But even though you're using a certain amount, turning on that fountain still strains the system.
And the dark little secret about our water system is our costs don't vary with the amount of water sold. We are a fixed cost system. It has to be, the bill has to be paid. We have to provide fire protection. We have to provide 20 pounds of hydrostatic pressure in the system on the hottest day of the year every year. We build for peak. We don't build for average. That's why Dave pulls his hair out. What's happened?
So the increase that 2 cent increase for the 0 to 50 block is 50 cents.
Mr. Mayor. I mean, I think if, tell me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but I think what you're kind of getting at is, really it's that base rate that really affects lower income than, or, senior citizen, somebody who doesn't have as much money. It's really that base rate in our system, in our current system, that affects them more so than than our usage fees. Because but I don't know if if we came back with the data, would the price point per per gallon altogether for that consumer be that much of a difference to make a fourth rate or not? I guess that's.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'm glad we're talking through this because I think it, just inspires other ideas and healthy conversation about it. I'm just looking at, in general, ways to make it so that people on restricted income, that has their social security check as their primary source of income or only source of income, that we're taking that population into consideration because we're making a pretty big decision here.
Mr. Mayor. That's why we're taking this new approach. For the past 10+ years, the city has just raised the base rate and not touched this commodity rate. That's why we're bringing this to you, is otherwise to cover costs, that base rate would jump up $1 or $2 every single year. Whereas this way you let the high end users pay that without impacting the people who are conscientious to their usage. Because ultimately, if you never turn your tap on, you're only going to pay the $34 fee. So it's really up to you to dictate your future. And that's why we're coming to you to appropriately rate this to save the people who use low and get it where the people are running the costs up. So that is why we're hitting this approach rather than just continuing to hammer on that base rate. So
I think that that's a very important message to convey too, because that to me seems like a very valid and logical point. But I think we just need to make sure that we also convey that in our messaging when we do increase our rate.
Rate increases are inevitable. They have to happen. Costs of living around you go up. Our chemical prices are going up. If you look through the budget, our labor costs are $2,000 higher than our increase in revenue this year. We're already going backwards $2,000 just in that. So we have to look at this holistically from the 10,000 foot level and say, how do we keep this operation running? And these numbers are realistic things that we have to do. It can't be avoided. So like I said, we're just posing something to you that maybe strategically hits this more appropriate so that people are paying for their
Let me
usage.
do this a little historically too. When you raise rates, which a lot of communities end up doing, then you go to raise rates and you end up with a 10, 15, 20% proposal that comes back because you have to balance the budget. You get a lot more shock because people can't, it's harder on their budget. What we've been doing with these small increases is we've been cushioning that it's been a small increase for how many years now?
Well, since you and I've been doing it 2007, 8.
Yeah. Well, the first time it got shot down, so it was about 5 years after that.
Okay.
But when I've been through rate increases where we've had to look at the community and say 10, 15% on both water and sewer. And because we haven't raised rates in 10 years. And you can go back and you can say, if we only did this, then we'd have only had to do, to be doing a study where we're talking about a 2.5% rate increase.
You feel pretty good about
how often do you come across that?
I don't very often. I usually get the 15, 20, 30%ers, or even worst case, a federal judge is now setting your rates because you have not done your job. And now
you have loans.
Haven't met your bond covenants, and the bond covenants say thou shalt raise rates, and a judge will do it for you.
I want to, Dave, thank you for that more holistic approach. I agree that we've been on a path that needs a detour, and I think this is the right way to go. And it does promote conservation. That monthly base rate charge, every year, we've been adding to that. Now we're going to be doing something different. how long would we be able to keep this base rate and just use this new system to kind of help us?
So our proposal is to still follow the 2.5% with the base rate.
The base rate will keep going up and
The two numbers would work in conjunction with each other.
the percentage of the base rate, it would just, the plan is to stay as is in terms of what we're increasing it by each year.
Right now, you're increasing it for the CCI, which I believe this year was 1.6%.
Sure.
So the minimum you're going to see the 1.6 is part of the discussion we had at the last meeting is that we would go to 2.5 or the CCI, whichever was greater is what I heard at that meeting. That's obviously not set in stone discussion, but that's where we would go because really anything below that, we start to go backwards. So looking once again, holistically, we've got to kind of hit that minimum. And that's what Steve's numbers kind of show that projection of where we're going to be. And even I believe at that, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, at 2.5 was still only giving us 300,000 of capital revenue against a master plan that says we should be at 800,000+ a year in spending to keep our infrastructure stable. So we're still falling short even at that. So we're trying to find a compromise that the community's comfortable with. We're going to do our best on our end to make those projects as efficient as we can. And we'll reevaluate in 3 to 5 years and just kind of keep an eye on this and see where these numbers are trending and then come back to you if something's problematic. If it's working, then great. But
with that price per gallon, I mean, it said at the 40, 42, and 44, how often would we be increasing those on those?
Potentially, you would review it every year.
Every year. Okay.
You'd want to keep a real close eye on it because now your mix of revenues coming in the door, the preponderance of your revenue now is coming from that fixed charge. As we start moving that variable charge up more, you're going to get a different mix of revenue, and we want to keep an eye on that and report to you folks that how the revenues are coming in.
if I remember right, the hybrid was 2.5 and 2.5, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, is about a penny a year.
Right.
So you would see that number about a penny a year moving.
Peter.
I've sat through a lot of these, and so I'm just going to share some observations. And I'm King City city attorney, so and I'll point out that the maximum lot size in King City is 5,000 square feet. So fortunately, they don't have a whole lot of outdoor space to water. But my observation is what several of you have said, which is that people on fixed incomes that live in manufactured housing use very little water. My other observation is that people that use the most water are most able to afford it, whether it's because they have a koi pond or elaborate landscaping, or, you know, Willamette Week used to do the hydro hogs every year, and they were invariably like 2 acres in Dunthorpe or Portland Heights. So to those people, it really doesn't matter whether their water rate is 40 or 44 cents, which is why you're not going to bring them in. But my observation has been that they are most able to pay. And so that by having more categories, you could actually lower the rate for the people that are most in need. And not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because you're demonstrating to them, you're going to pay a much lower rate than this person that is using so much more water than we would hope that they would use. And that person that's using so much more water than we would hope they use, you know, particularly if they're over 100, if they pay a much higher rate, it's not a burden to them because they have enough money that they're not even thinking about their water bill, unless a pipe ruptures or something and they get one that's a few thousand, and then they might think about it. But so what I've seen in some jurisdictions, Lake Oswego is one of them, is the spread between the low and the high. It's kind of like a graduated tax rate. So you pay X amount for the first however many, and then more. And then by the time you get up to the highest category, they're either people are just don't care and can just afford to cut the check, or they do change their behavior. But I've seen ones that, like a 5 cents bracket ride, in my mind, just doesn't. It seems like you're leaving a lot of high end money on the table, and then the percentage that the modest means people pay, when you consider in the monthly rate, they're just not getting as much benefit probably likely as you would want to show them, as compared to the people that, you know, have a koi pond and are watering their yards at 1 in the afternoon.
I move that we extend this meeting past 9 o'clock.
Hearing a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One, I'm opposed.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I mean, I mean, like, as Tyler said, it would be kind of nice for us to see that 0 to 50 broken out a little bit more in order for us to see what that looks like on a, because that's a huge category of population. It would be nice to have that broken down to the smaller portion so that we could see, you know, what percentage actually is in a very low consumption rate.
Well, what you're going to see is, this is called a frequency distribution. So we're going to have the number of people that used 1, number of people that used 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, all the way out to 50. So you're going to get this little bouncing around. You're going to see so what you'd want to do is get what logical group, what is the smaller block that you want to see? 0 to 20, 0 to 25? The data is going to confuse you if I give you raw data, and we've got it. The data is there. We tried to do this so that we wouldn't get into the parsing that we're doing now. And our basic assumption was that, as the mayor pointed out, if you don't use the water, you won't pay for it.
And I understand that, you know, I do. My thought process though is that if you can somehow point out a smaller portion and then, you know, raise up the amounts on the higher end, where we might make up some of that difference, to be able to kind of really quantify that. I don't know if that, I mean, if that's making sense.
So now you want to get into a subsidy and a discount is what you're thinking about? Is that what I'm hearing? You want to give a deep discount on the very short end of the curve and a heavy premium on the long end of the curve?
I would like to see what that kind of looks like, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's I think
yeah.
that's kind of a dramatic statement of it. I agree with what Councilor Polling's saying. I would like to see, I mean, without seeing the data in front of me, it's kind of hard to say, okay, we want to go to 20 or 30 or 40, right? There's probably going to be at some point some sort of, you know, peak or a spike in it, right? I would like to identify what that spike is in between 1 and 50 and see what that looks like so that we have the information to make a decision here. I mean, if we can lower the rates, I think there's a perception issue here to be had too. So if we can lower the rates and add another column before 50 or a group for 50, and then maybe raise it a little bit higher for, you know, the other higher end users, then not impacting what we're bringing in, we might even be making more actually.
Sure.
I do have I was going to question the only 44 cents for the over 75, which for the people over 100, that's really a penny increase. That the under 50 people were putting up 2 pennies, which seems to me those people are more likely to be on the lower end of the income scale or frugal. And it just seems like we're kind of kicking them a little more than the guy that's pouring the water out. And I wouldn't mind seeing this data either, because
it's done. It's already done.
Oh.
So, yeah, the charts have already been prepared. We just tried to make this
quick and simple and easy,
more concise, so that we didn't get into statistical. What did Samuel Clemens say? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Mr. Mayor.
Also, so for council's thing, maybe we bring back the information that I know the monthly shut off. I know they spiked a little bit during COVID, but we always have a monthly shut off list. And it's usually the same people from my understanding. And, you know, it spiked for a while. Last year we
want to
did.
know the number of people?
Yeah, just the monthly number so that, you know, we can kind of understand.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I mean, do we have an issue or do we not? Is that okay to give out?
The
I
number?
would probably redact the name.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, no, I'm
it-
just saying
it is
numbers. I'm not, I'm saying the number of people each month, like.
Susan just said there were 31.
31.
Oh, see, shut off date today.
Want to go over the data? I can talk the data right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, because I would actually, Mr. Mayor, could I ask something?
Go ahead.
Mr. Don, I'm just curious that us asking these questions, I'm getting a really, I don't know, a strong feeling that this is maybe, you started out by saying that this is could potentially create paralysis, using the, analysis to paralysis. We have to speak to the community members, the ratepayers. And so for us to have the information to be able to provide that conversation and that content to them, I think that is what we hired you for. And so I just want to make sure, are we doing anything to overstep our thought process here in making this decision, in your opinion?
I'm a firm believer in Occam's razor. You know what that is?
No, actually I can't. Could you please explain?
Yes.
When you have a complicated problem with multiple solutions, usually the simplest solution is the best. And that's why we kind of went to this approach. Start with this, see how this works. Because now we're going to go into, we're going to add in another block that could potentially be a discount against our cost of service. And we're going to capture that revenue by raising the rate on the outside. What happens if we give a huge price signal out outside and they do change their behavior? Now we've lost our premium and all we've got is discount. And Dave's $300,000 for his capital projects, our costs are fixed. Now he doesn't have that.
And I understand that and I appreciate that explanation. But as someone who is not an expert in this, but I do have to make a decision in this process, being able to have an open dialogue and an open conversation to be able to make that best decision is something that I seek from Dave and our consultants. And so I just want to be able to talk through this so that I can make that decision. And I hope every counselor here would want to have that same conversation, because I know Dave and his team, I know what they need, but I also have to make sure that those ratepayers aren't going to be the ones that are going to fully take this on and not understand why they're having these increases. So I appreciate your participation and your patience in allowing us to be, I guess, taught how to make this decision. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So here is the raw data. And what we're talking about here is, let's talk about that 0 to 20. Let's just use that for a grin. In 2020, we actually had 85 customers that used no water at all for perfectly valid reasons, that meter didn't have any water go through it.
Less than 10%.
Less than 10%. So if we add up all of the observations between 0 and 20, we come up with 621. So we're going to have 621 people in here, about the size of here. 621 are going to come off of this block and come down here. So that's the answer to your question. How many were in there?
What was the gallons for that? Sorry.
0 to 1.
0 to 20. So if we open up a new block right here, 0 to 20, you'd have that 600, I forget, 600 and some.
621.
Sliced out of here and brought down here. Does that change your dynamic of thinking of, are you going to discount that rate then instead of?
For me, to answer your question, for me, it doesn't, because that's 620 people that are probably 620 people. So I do appreciate that data.
Those are 620 meters. So that's probably more than 620 people.
Okay.
So I go back to the mayor's point of, if they use less water in that block, they're going to pay less. And what was, Mayor, what was it was $9?
So at 38 cents, which it currently is, if there someone that's using the top side of that, the 22,000 gallons, would be paying $7.60 on top of their base fee, which make it.
So there is that opportunity. We call it avoid and control.
42.25 is what their rate would be at the 2,000 gallons. So it went down. So if you're doing 10 gallons, obviously you're doing half that.
So if I heard, but what you're thinking is that 621 block of 0 to 20, you want to actually discount that price even more, right? Go from.
I have not heard anyone say discount that anymore. So I didn't hear him say that. Maybe I misunderstood it. Maybe you misunderstood what he said. I haven't.
Okay, I thought I heard.
Can I clarify my first point? That, I would honestly like to find a smaller group where we don't raise that consumption rate, where it keeps it at that 38 cents. I'm not saying lower than what it currently
Okay.
is.
I thought there was a proposal to lower it below what it is now.
But I think that we should have we have a group of people where we don't want to raise the current rates even further, right? At this point, if we can make that work. based
Base
on
rate.
The base.
So you're thinking like if we did the 621 at the 0 to 20, left them at 38 cents.
38 cents.
But they'd still get a small increase on their
Yes.
base based on the.
Same with everybody across the board.
So you would go,
Shared it. That's shared across, though.
yeah,
It's equitable.
So I have 4 groups. Sorry, can I talk?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I have 4 groups here and I changed the numbers between the two. So it's 621 and 1,113. And I'm just starting to put numbers on top of them. So if we're talking about that first group would stay at 38 and then the next group, we could do 42 or we could, even that first group, we could do 39 and 43 or, like we can.
I would do something like 40, 42, 46.
That's, I had 42, 44, 46, but first group, you're saying stay at 38, but then from there.
The 51 to 75 has got a 4-cent increase proposal. So I think if you went 46, it would be the same there. Then the 0 to 50 at only a 2%. The 21 to 50, then 0 to 20 would stay at 38 cents. And I think
What do you have the second group as? Sorry.
I still left them at 42.
Okay. Yeah. So I have 38, 42, 44, 46.
Oh, so you went 44.
In the current usage categories that are there.
Yeah. So the first category is 621. Second category is 1,113, 708, 362.
Right.
And it's set at 38, 42, 44, and 46.
Currently, there's 4.
Yes.
This is showing just 3, usage.
Yeah. We're talking about adding a 4th one in.
Well, we currently have a 4th. This is showing 1 reduced because it used to show 2 of them that had the exact.
I think we're agreeing that we don't like what the first one was showing. It was too broad.
I think what we're saying is that we keep the 4. The
Yes.
first tier is 0 to 20. The second tier is 21 to 50. Third tier is 51 to 75, then over 75.
And it was 38, 42, 44, 46.
Yes.
38, 42, 44,
46.
46.
Which would actually make us more maybe because that middle one at the 21 to 50, you're catching more people at the 42.
Then you get people that can start conserving.
Sure.
That working?
842.
Yes, I mean, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you could even take that last one to a little bit higher if you wanted to.
40. I thought about 48.
I just don't know what that equals out and gives Dave for his.
I can't do your numbers on what you
why
need, but
we have to have the conversation.
Steve will have to compare that to the recent data he's received to kind of see what that number looks like.
They're willing.
Plug it into the model and just.
Yeah,
kinda see
I'm
what
willing
that
on
looks like.
the upside to do whatever.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. There's no question of, the only concern that I would have, and we won't know this is until you make that change, is bring these people here and like Peter pointed out, we really give them enough signal that they start moving this. This is our generator that generate surplus revenue.
that's why they're at 46 or 48 and we know they're not going to change.
Well, we won't know that until we send them a bill.
And I hate, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
do this, but when I look at this, I felt like we needed to look at what was before our numbers and what was after our numbers, meaning what we just accomplished with before, so 0 to 20, but why would we not just add another tier on the high end and then jack that up even 2 more cents? Because if the theory is correct, that those people are the ones that use more water and they don't care, I don't.
You're saying look at it maybe between 75 and.
No, I would say sorry, go ahead.
So when you're saying you're over 75, would you want to know what 76 to above is, or
No, I would, yeah, so sorry, I would leave,
looking at
no,
the
I would
red
leave-
one,
Sorry?
the red one?
Yeah, I would leave over 75 the way it is. I would just add another tier after.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
So it would be so it would be, what would your tier after say?
Well, see, again, without looking at data, it's so hard to even make these recommendations because I don't even know what the number of users are for like over 100.
114 on the previous thing.
Yeah.
You have it on the upper one.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Got it.
There's 114 users.
So if we made that, if we kept the over 100 and, sorry, I feel like an airhead now. If we kept the over 100 and just made that rate even 2 cents more, would that help? Dave, would that help you? I mean, what would that?
Well, for one thing, I'm starting to get a little, because we're still looking at this slide. If we could back up to slide 6, that's more on what we're structured now. Those are the 4 user columns, that we're based on right now. If you fall into that category, are you talking about, did I hear something about reducing some of the first ones?
No, so we already have our one established from 0 to 20, right? So we've already talked
No, I'm confused on 0 to 20. Is 0 to 50?
Yeah,
Sort of 50. So that's why
what
we were talking about doing
What we were talking about is basically on the new recommendation where we went to 3, taking that but going backwards on that and adding a 4th one as a 0 to 20.
So I guess we're sticking with this. It would look like we're sticking with the blue graph.
And so on.
0 to 20, 20 to 50, 51 to 75, over 75. But Tyler's also suggesting that there's something on the top end. Is
I
that?
think what he's saying is stick to this, 76 to 100 and over 100.
So the over the 100 would be the spike at
48.50 cents.
Okay, so we're all on the same page. Can I just restate it from the beginning? I just want to make sure everybody's clear on, we're all on the same page. Sorry, I'm going to make this really fast. We have the 0 to 20, like Josh has pointed out. We're not raising the rate, right?
No. Well, so this is what we're trying to figure out. In the current rate, the current schedule, it's 0 to 50.
I know, but we changed it in the red.
Yeah, in the red, are we changing that? And then
Basically, blue is what we need to start off. We're just adding the front category.
4 columns, what's our blocks?
Yep. So go back up to the blue.
I
It
have-
gives us exactly what we want, except just not
You're
that.
adding 0 to 20.
I'm deferring to the teacher to explain.
No, but are we going to do, so are we doing 4 columns or 5 columns?
5.
So we're looking at actually adding a column and doing 0 to 20 here and then these columns. That's what you're talking about, Tyler.
We would have 0 to 20, right?
Is it going to break the bank to go to 25? I don't know why, but just even.
That's what I was thinking too. So
I don't know where we honed on.
Can you tell me what that 0 to 25 is for?
Sure, I can tell you.
Sorry, I'm snapping gum. It's getting too late.
766.
Okay.
Ooh. Yikes.
we went from 620 to 766.
Extra 5.
That's a
We're
lot.
getting in our sweet spot.
I say leave it at 20.
Yeah, you asked the question, and I think the answer is just to keep it at 20 because of the data. So that's my opinion anyway. So we do 0 to 20, and then we do 20 to 21 to 50, and then we do 51 to 75. Then we do 76 to 100.
Right.
And then we do
Over 100.
And then we do 100. Yeah.
And you still have 114 that are over 100. So
Right. So then we.
what kind of rates you thinking?
38, 42, 44, 46, 80.
No. Probably in that category. So.
What do you think?
It won't be long.
I can.
He likes his koi pond.
It's not about me, so whatever.
Oh, no, you've got a koi pond? Now I feel. Foot in mouth.
Can I say my suggestion would be put it at 50? Only because we do want to try and also, I mean, the
I
nat,
was totally teasing, by the way.
the conservative in me wants to say, hey, let's try and force a little bit of people out of that. Not that we probably will or not, but at least that gives us that, hey, we want
To
you
be
to
honest, I'm not opposed to that 100% because that solves some of our water source problems.
Right. You get these.
I mean, it postpones some of our immediate issues by dialing it back. I'm okay with some
So-
conservation amounts.
What if it was 0 to 20, 38 cents? I'm just throwing this out as an option. We're in a work session, so 0 to 20, 38 cents. 21 to 50, 40 cents. It's up 2 cents. Because they're already at 38, so it's going up 2 cents. 51 to 75 actually goes up to 4 cents to 42. 71 to 60, 46 cents, and the 100 plus 50 cents.
Like that.
I want to make sure it just pencils out for you, Dave.
I'm happy to get anything I can.
I know, I get that.
And I'll be honest, I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this because at one of the next meetings, I hope to hit you with a resolution that says just exactly this.
Well, it's
We're
important on
trying to
both
get this
ends, right?
So
38, 42, 44, 46.
No,
Oh, 38, 40, 42, 46, 50.
Slow down. 38, 40, 40.
42, 46,
Got it.
50.
now we have another category that's not represented here that Jill and I were talking about today. And that is hydrant meter consumption. And what that typically is a contractor who rolls into town. They pay a $750 deposit. We put a meter somewhere within the city, close to their site or wherever they need it. And they pay a rate. And we were talking that we would like that to be at the 50 cent range too, rather than the 38. So
Perfect.
Kind of comfortable with that. That would be creating a new category that will be on the fee resolution. But since those people are typically profiting, why shouldn't it be a fair dynamic? So
Hey, that's your industry. So if you want to.
Sold my hot dog yesterday.
To recap, 0 to 20, 38 cents. 21 to 50, 40 cents, 5% above the base charge. 51 to 75, 42%, 42 cents, 11% of the base charge. 76 to 100, 46 cents, 21% of the base charge. Over 100, 50 cents, 32%.
The base charge is the 38 cents.
38 cents.
Well, yeah, it's designed to encourage conservation.
And
so in theory, it's not a raise at all if they conserve water.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a rate increase.
Bingo.
I have a question here, just so that we keep in perspective and kind of keep everything in mind. Are we crazy with these rates or?
No,
I mean, there's,
no, that's why I gave you the percentages. They're all over the place.
I don't. really wanna
Every
say that.
community, and some are just pejorative. And Mayor, you pointed out in arid areas of like Arizona, Nevada, some of their fees are just astronomical, and they'll shut you
I
off.
believe it is. You grow gravel front yards too, so stack up too much.
Yeah. So this is not at all abnormal.
Yeah, look here.
Even if I could point your attention to that slide, that goes back to what other cities' commodity rates are.
Good.
Even our highest is, yeah.
Yeah, that makes me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Counselor Lasowski.
Thank you. All right, you guys have direction?
Donovan, thank you.
Bring something back to us.
We're gonna come back to you with a resolution, probably soon, ASAP.
Okay. All right.
I'm a little concerned about those people that own pools.
I'm not. You want a pool?
Those people that own pools.
Yeah.
I am.
I mean, unless I'm getting an invitation over to those pools?
Dave knows what I'm talking about.
They've got about 4 weeks to fill them.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for it. I didn't mean to be pejorative or argumentative, but I knew we had to get into this.
No, that's okay.
You got to a good spot.
All right, next item, resolution number 21-06, emergency declaration. Sir, appreciate it. Alexandra.
Mayor and Council, I will try to keep this short.
Good luck.
So,
That too.
well, I might
Hey, Huel.
a little bit more than you.
That's fine.
So obviously we have declared several emergency declarations over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our current resolution will be expiring at the end of the month. Obviously, the Oregon Health Authority has issued new guidance for those individuals who are vaccinated in terms of mask wearing and, requirements for indoors and outdoors. Those are attached, so you can see those this evening. I spoke with the city attorney and we felt that despite some of the loosening of the restrictions and some of the positive progress we're seeing, that it would be still important to go ahead and renew this emergency resolution to make sure that we are eligible for grant funding, anything else, that might come our way in terms of funding that's being handed out, and also that it would suspend contracting rules for emergency purchases if that were necessary. So those were the primary reasons we wanted to go ahead and renew this. And then also we wanted to propose that instead of having to come forward and potentially keep renewing this or some form of it, that it would simply stay in place until the governor rescinds her emergency order. If you look at the resolution itself, we've taken out some of the detail to make it a little bit more streamlined, to line up with her new guidance and make it a little bit more flexible moving forward. Peter, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, so, there, from a grant perspective, there are reasons to have this in place. We anticipate that the governor's order won't be in effect that much longer. And so instead of saying that this will be 3 months or 6 months, we hope that it'll be less than that. And the other thing is, we're getting a lot closer to reaching a point where maybe members of the public can come into buildings and things of that nature. And so that's why you see some of that safety language in there. It's to give staff maximum flexibility so as they feel safe, particularly with people that frequently need city services that we know are vaccinated, that or seniors that require more in-person help, that we would be able to have some flexibility in order to do that.
Do I have a motion?
Move the council adopt resolution number 2106, a resolution declaring that state of emergency exists within the city of Scappoose.
Hearing a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Councilor McHugh, seconded by Council President Greisen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state by saying,
Question. So what happens if the governor amends her emergency order?
if she rescinds her order, which she said she's doing.
What if she amends it though?
So if her order touches on what our order touches on, her order always supersedes ours. So the one area where we really do have autonomy is in the public contracting, but anything else, for instance, in response to Asa, who I'm sure is asleep right now, yeah, we can turn the fountain back on. And
next item,
the governor's guidelines.
It also says City of Portland, all fountains citywide will be up and running by Memorial Day weekend. And the Salmon Street fountain is on. I was going to take a picture of it.
So we can safely reopen the city fountain and things of that nature.
Are we moving on to number 5?
We're doing them both at the same time.
Yes, I guess. Cool. Speaking of those water rates,
Can help you with that.
let's turn that fountain back on.
So are you satisfied? All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Wait, to the fountain?
No, this is
Okay.
emergency order. Motion carries. This is the emergency order.
Yeah, but then you said we were doing it all at once. So I was.
Heritage Park fountain discussion.
Can I just ask that Isaac stay on? Because I have a question about pools. Thank you.
Peter basically said it.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, so shortly after our meeting, the governor issued new guidance that made it clear that we could reopen the fountain. As long as Isaac's on the phone, I just want to point out that the Carlton pool is open from June 17th through September 1st of every year. It's only open 6 hours a day. So if you think about the expenses associated with pools, a lot of it's lifeguarding. So it's not a 6-lane pool, it's quite small. So if you have that size of pool, you only have 1 lifeguard or perhaps 2 on duty versus a competition sized pool requires a lot more personnel and hours. So I didn't want to upset the members of the park committee, but that is not really a comp to comp if we're looking at what the members of the public are asking.
Okay, that was my question. I was curious if any new information, Isaac, from your research had come up about all of a sudden pools were costing less than we thought they were. But I thought that the Carlton pool example was something different than what we were looking at. And so I guess that Peter confirmed that. Again, I wasn't able to mention that during their presentation. I don't know if you had anything.
Actually, I do have one item. Briefly after we presented the last pool information to you, I was in contact with a group from Prineville, a foundation who did some research on pools and pool costs in rural Oregon and rural communities. I obtained a copy of their report, and it said exactly what we said initially about pools in terms of the costs and the funding mechanism. So I got new information, but really it was just confirmatory. As far as I understand it, there's nothing that has changed in terms of our estimations.
So is that information that we should reiterate at the next ad hoc meeting?
I'm going to defer to Alex on that one.
Okay.
Yes, I think that'd be a good idea.
Thank you.
So due to the fountain, Peter?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, per the governor's order, the fountain can absolutely be turned on.
All right, so does that mean council wants to see it turned on?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all right. I don't think we need to vote on it. Somebody wants to make a motion.
Are you going to run out there? Or?
Right now, I don't know. I think you have to open up a panel and everything, and
Yeah, and you gotta.
Dave will have to do it.
Some official thing? I mean,
A ribbon cutting.
yeah.
Can you get Asa to come do a ribbon cutting?
Yeah, Asa, come. Oh, he should be there.
So if somebody wants to make a motion to open up the pool, so it's kind of
We don't have a pool.
a fountain. Fountain.
We're all getting a little loopy here.
Yeah, wow.
You can plug the drain. You can pull.
Totally.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move staff turn on the fountain.
Hearing a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second, any discussion?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We've made modifications. I don't remember since it's been off so long, the exact hours, but is there a time frame for water conservation reasons that you council are comfortable with it operating? We've seen over the years that certain times of the night or whatever, people are just hitting it to hit it. It's not being used for the intent. So I would like to program it to say from 10 a.m. or noon to 7 p.m. or something that you all are comfortable with. If
It's light or later.
Light feature is something though, we don't want to turn it off before sundown.
No, I think the light
the
stays.
lights stay on,
Oh.
the music goes away, the lights operate during 10 p.m. quiet time, city quiet
Yeah,
time.
when's quiet time?
But it's already programmed to do that. The lights will continue to function and things. It's just more of having the water jets
I
function.
mean,
during
kids should be
certain
in bed
windows.
by 8 o'clock. It should probably be turned off by then.
But what about that one night where it's their TV show?
I
Can they still
know.
go up 30 that night?
Yeah, he's suggesting the water be shut down at 10. Is that okay to have people in the parks at 10? When do parks technically at dusk? So,
I think the light feature requires, we had this discussion before, and I think we decided 10 o'clock. previously.
It just goes to where the lights just stay on and make the fountain glow during the quiet hours of the city. Like right now, if you were to look.
Chief, what do you think on the water? Because that means people are gathering and hanging out and staying and,
I would go 9 or 10 to 9.
okay, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
That works.
Yeah.
All right.
At the timer.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to turn back on the fountain with that added direction, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, cancellation of the July 5th, 2021 council meeting. According to code, the mayor may cancel that meeting. The meeting is canceled.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it makes it easier. We don't
Good job.
discuss. Obviously, they don't have anything on the agenda. It's the day after the 4th of July. Everyone's going to be running around crazy because this whole world's going to be, or state's going to be open to back up. Not the whole world, at least the United States, because that's our holiday. And
Let freedom ring.
exactly. President Biden promised us. All right. Calendar. Next council meeting is June 21st, I believe. We do have a 6 o'clock work session. City council meeting is at 7. Planning commission meeting this Thursday at 7 PM. Other one on the 24th at 7 PM. We've got the 100-year celebration ad hoc committee meeting at 1 o'clock on the 17th, with the grab horn meeting at 6 o'clock and the park and rec committee meeting at 6 o'clock, meeting jointly. Alex, you have anything?
Yay. Maybe getting additional funds.
I don't know exactly how then the school on July 19th.
To Chief Miller,
Nothing.
Dave Sukow.
I just want to thank you all for your efforts in evaluating water rates. Oh, and if you do take it down to Chapman Landing, there's been a lot more sent by you. Some shaded areas.
Councilor Miller. Mr. President Grayson.
The 8th grade student Hannah that was working on the food pantry has put it up. It's all completed. Lots of people have been donating to the food pantry. She was in the spotlight website. So anyways, super proud of her and that contribution to the community. I also just want to say for the record that I am very grateful and supportive of the Grab Horn at Park Ad Hoc Committee. I value their input and I look forward to their recommendations, and I take to heart all of their feedback and I appreciate their time.
Thank
Thank you.
Councilor Pauling.
I just want to say thank you to council for really being representative of the community and thinking about them. And when we talk about things like water rates and that, so you know, I know it's never easy when you're talking about trying to raise money, but we need to obviously just finding those right ways to make it work. So thank you.
Councilor Salsky.
Congratulations to the Scappoose Senior High School class of 2021. Thank you.
Councilor McHugh.
Well, just in regard to the Centennial, and there's lots of stuff happening. For the first time, I've been able to go into the Watts house and look at what's there, and there's a tremendous amount of information there. Unfortunately, a lot of that information is just totally new to me and to others. We didn't even know it existed. So as far as the city display is concerned, working hard on that, but that's there's just a lot of information to go through and sort out. And if anybody feels inclined to join me in that effort, you know, I'm all for it. So just let me know. But I think it's going to fall together. But there's a lot of loose ends out there. Believe me, a lot of them. And so fingers crossed on them all coming through. Wanted you to know.
Thank you. The only thing I was going to bring up was I was going to bring it up at the end of the community enhancement projects. So it's when you're making your selections that it says box 2 not to exceed the amount that you're able to put forward is $4,285. There's a secondary thing that's not normally was on here and isn't on here, is that your maximum contribution to any one organization is 1/7 of the amount requested. So and that protects 5 people saying a $1,500 thing gets all $1,500 of theirs. But your maximum amount that you can give to any one group is 1/7 of what they requested, and your total is the $4,285. So you can give up to 1/7 of each one of those, and that's how we've done it, and it's worked very well.
I have a question about that. So someone had mentioned that the Scappoose Kiwanis, something had changed, or so is their application not, or maybe Councilor McHugh had mentioned something.
And all I know is what I'd heard is that the board decided.
The school board?
Kiwanis board.
The Kiwanis
Kiwanis
board.
Okay.
Not to pursue it because of COVID this year and restrictions with COVID. There was one dissenting vote on that, but other than that, Audits Board, as I understand what I was told, decided not to participate this year. So I'm assuming that I need to check on that. But
Is there a way, Susan, you could follow up with their contact or? To see if their application is withdrawn?
I'll call George as we're going out,
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
maybe.
Well, George had called. And I thought contacted other people at the city about it as well, so.
I just, before we turn these in a week
Yeah.
or so, want to know, do we give them anything?
Changes the numbers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes how you donate.
Maybe someone could just email us all and let us know?
Try to call right now and see what he's.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Before you're gone.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Brandon.
Thank you for always being aware of the time.
Oh, well, you've trained me to.